Good evening. Today is November 18th, 2025. It is 5:30, and we are going to start the Durango City Council meeting. Could I have roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Coso? Here. Councilor Lawyer?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff? Here. Mayor Yazzie? And Councilor Gonzalez. And the next item is the reading of the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement.
This is a call to honor and respect Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination. As residents and visitors of Durango, we are called upon to educate ourselves about the history and cultural heritage of the land we inhabit. The city of Durango is situated on the ancestral homelands and territories of the Nuchu, Ute, Jicarilla Apache, Pueblos of New Mexico, Hopi-Sinom, Hopi, and Diné Navajo nations. The original stewards of this land were forcibly removed and exposed to countless atrocities by the United States government, including repeatedly broken treaties, forced assimilation, the tragic legacy of Indian boarding schools, and the loss of ancestral homelands. We recognize lasting generational trauma exists within Native communities today. We affirm the continuing importance of ancestral sites to descendant communities as integral to the living cultural landscape. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed actions. May this serve as a step toward inclusion and reconciliation.
And the next item on the agenda is introduction of the translator.
Hi, good evening. My name is Liz Torres, and I am here with my colleague, Ruben Mauricio. We'll be your Spanish interpreters for today, and we're here from the Community Language Co-op. Thank you so much for your commitment to language justice so that everyone can speak and hear in the language of their heart. We will turn on interpretation, and you can access it through the More menu and select language and speech, and then you can select the language of your heart from there. Today, if you have any commentary in Spanish, please make sure to give us a couple of minutes so that we can have the interpreter do the consecutive interpretation once we're ready. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Liz Torres y estoy aquí con mi colega Ruby Mauricio. Estamos aquí de la Cooperativa Comunitaria del Lenguaje. Muchas gracias por su compromiso con la justicia del lenguaje para que así todos puedan hablar y escuchar en el idioma de su corazón. El día de hoy vamos a ser sus intérpretes y si usted tiene comentario para la audiencia, entonces, y lo tiene en español, por favor, denos unos cuantos segundos para que podamos cambiar al intérprete al canal principal y así podamos hacer la interpretación consecutiva. Gracias. We can go ahead and get started.
The next item on the agenda is Section 3, opening remarks by Mayor and Council. Thank you. And moving on to presentations and proclamations, we have item 4.1, which is a proclamation recognizing December 13th, 2025 as Wreaths Across America Day.
Proclamation in support of Wreaths Across America Day, December 13, 2025. Whereas in 1992, Merrill Worcestershire of Worcestershire Wreath Company recognized the veterans who made the sacrifices for their country. And whereas in early 2002, the nonprofit group Wreaths Across America was formed. With the help of the Civil Air Patrol and many others in 2008. Ceremonies were held at 300 locations, whereas last year over 3 million remembrance wreaths were placed in all 50 states and beyond. Whereas over 1,300 of our country's veterans are laid to rest at Greenmont Cemetery in Durango, Colorado, from the Civil War to our latest conflicts. And whereas in this 50th year of participating, wreaths have been sponsored for 100% of the known veterans buried in Greenmont Cemetery and beyond. And now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the City Council of Durango, do hereby proclaim December 13, 2025 to be Wreaths Across America Day as we lay wreaths in honor of our veterans. Given under my hand and sealed this 18th day of November, 2025. Congratulations. So thank you. You bet.
And under 4.2, our next item is options and modifications to the Land Use and Development Code and Code of Ordinances to allow electric fences and electric mats for deterring bear access.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a follow-up to the presentation that was requested by Councilor Koso and that was approved by the City Council. Daniel Murray with our Community Development Department will give a little bit of background on these presentations regarding electric fences and electric mats. There will be some types of possible recommendations that staff would have at the end of this presentation. However, there is no action to be taken after this. If council would like it to continue to go further, that would be something they could ask for during new business. But obviously, you can ask questions and on those portions of it as well. Daniel.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Daniel Murray, Community Development Department. The item this evening correlates to our strategic plan goal of safety and quality of life, given the specific focus on public safety. As just mentioned, you gave staff direction at your October meeting to come back and present options and modifications to either the Land Use Development Code and or the Code of Ordinances to allow electric fences and bear mats to deter bear access. Currently, the Land Use Development Code says you need administrator approval to have an electric fence. While that section may appear to allow the option, in practice, the administrator, which is the community development director, has not allowed electric fences in the city since the Code of Ordinances prohibits them. And also in practice, an electric fence and an electric mat are very similar, so we've not permitted those either. Next couple slides show you some images of what we're talking about. This on the left would be an electric fence combined with a wildlife fence. So it's that tighter woven wire mesh that would keep out smaller critters, but the purpose here is the taller fence that is electrified. You see 5 strands of horizontal wire that would keep out deer and bear. It's protecting a garden. On the right side, similar concept. It's actually the same 5 wires. They're in a more compact design around a chicken coop. And these are the most prominent examples of where you would apply a electric fence. The other example we see in the city, or not in the city, but in practice would be for a beehive. However, we don't allow beehives in the city in our residential zones, so that's less applicable. You can, there's 2 limited zones that it's allowed, but that's really just a handful of places around the city. The other instance where one would want to apply an electric fence would be the image on the left side of the screen, protecting a fruit tree. The benefit, or at least the advantage of that design, is that's actually a temporary fence. It takes less posts, it just sets in place during the fruiting season. So we have the value of being able to put up a fence longer term, say for that chicken coop, or in a seasonal nature for fruiting trees. The right image, very local, I bet you can picture where that is, just around the corner, shows the damage that trees incur when bears are in them. These are 2 images of a bear mat, and we actually have an example here today brought in by the Bear Smart group. And so this is actually very similar to my left as well as on the screen. It's a mat that goes down. They're often known as unwelcome mats, and they plug right in. That's the benefit of seeing this here today. It would just plug into a 110, 120 outlet, and I'll speak more to that in a minute. On the right side, you see a series of mats put in a string around a garage. In doing research, staff started looking at various jurisdictions as a model, and it was quickly brought to our attention that Missoula, Montana is one to look into. In their case, they do allow electric fences and mats with a permit, so they permit it like a conventional fence. They only allow these electric fences and mats in 3 zone districts: the commercial, industrial, and agricultural zone district, or in the area shown on the screen in orange, which is known as the bear buffer zone. And that's areas that are against their urban interface and areas where they have documented instances of bear activity or bear issues. What they do not allow is the fence or mat adjacent to a street, sidewalk, or a property line, which is a key consideration for public safety. Going a little further with our research, we looked more locally, such as La Plata County would have and does allow electric fences and mats as a use by right, so no permit required. That makes good sense given the agricultural nature of the county, but you can also picture quite a few dense subdivisions like in the Animas Valley. So these uses are occurring and seemingly have found their place. The next jurisdiction we looked at, and these are actually in a bit of an order from most permissive to least permissive, would be Steamboat Springs. They also allow electric fences and bear mats. We spoke directly with their Bear Smart organization of Steamboat Springs, and they are essentially their first point of contact for any individual wanting to do this type of improvement. They have a practice of loaning out bear mats, which I've come to realize is a common practice and even one that occurs in La Plata County. And the advantage of loaning out the bear mats is in an instance where there's been reported bear activity, say an individual left dog food out on their porch, the goal there is to put the mat down or some type of deterrent and to quickly teach that bear not to come back. And then they'll go to the other place, and ultimately we want to keep them foraging for natural food and not getting in that habit of looking for human food. So I've come to realize this a bit of a spontaneous or reactive installation has a lot of value in terms of directing the behavior. The next example we looked at was Montrose. It's a little more restrictive. They do permit them, but they only permit them if the fence is behind another fence. So in that case, it would have to be enclosed, and in their words, where it's made inaccessible to a person who would not know the fence is electrified by virtue of another fence. And then last example here is Colorado Springs. They too, like Missoula, limit the application to commercial, industrial, and agricultural zones, not allowed in a residential zone district. And similar to Montrose, they have a requirement that that fence be behind another fence. This illustration on the right gives us some talking points if we need to come back to what it is we're after. In this case, it's a 2-strand illustration. You see the energizer there, known as a controller, against the building. Those are the key elements of this concept, and grounding, which is the bullet number 4. So a bit of discussion on safety. The key considerations are how much amperage and the duration that amperage is being exerted. There is a high voltage, if you will, but what's important is there is only up to, in the example of Missoula, 1 joule of energy. And even these systems I've learned are far less than that 1 joule. It's 300 milliamps. And by comparison, your conventional toaster in your kitchen is up to 15 amps. So this is a significantly lower level of energy. And what is also important is that it's a brief pulse. It's intended to be a shock. It's a burst, as it's described commonly, and it allows the animal or even a person to step back. What it doesn't do is cause the muscle lock, nor does it generate heat. And that's commonly the attributes of being electrified. So it allows an individual to be warned or animal, and then be able to step away. Been able to watch some videos. It even has that same effect on, say, a little mouse would approach a mat, and in the videos, they end up jumping in the air and they scurry off. So it's not intended to cause harm. The bottom line is that they deliver a short, sharp, non-lethal shock. While we're on the subject of bear mats, this is actually the same model in the image as what's shown here today on this table. And in an estimation of cost, this is about $125 bear mat. So if council were to give staff direction, some considerations that we would put in a future regulation would be the requirement for warning signs. We would ultimately work more closely with our Durango Fire Protection District. They did express a desire to work with the city if this is something we're going to pursue. They have experience with this system in the county. There would need to be, or we could explore ways to ensure that pets and kids are not inadvertently shocked. One example I've heard of is that you put these systems on timers. So it's really just during those late night hours that they're activated, and by day, they're just a floor mat or a fence. It's important, something I've learned is that you need to be barefoot to be shocked. If you're standing on them with shoes, you're insulated and you do not get a shock. It really is just that barefoot way that electricity would conduct. Another provision could be that we require only commercially available systems, trying to avoid your DIY product. This is a commercially available system. It is UL listed, which is really important because it comes with a lot of testing and a lot of assurances behind it. These are products you can buy at Tractor Supply and anywhere that sells kind of agricultural related products. There would be a requirement for compliance with state electrical code. It really depends on how the system is installed. A system could be hardwired, and that would need a state electrical permit. A system could be standalone, say battery powered or even solar powered. And then a system could be plug and play. And that's what we would recommend, but we're keeping options open if we were to come back to this. This is an example of a plug and play. It really just goes into your normal receptacle. A city building permit would not be required because we are governed by the state electrical board for electrical. So no city building permit, but we would propose that it would go through a land use permitting process, which that structure already exists. The city does permit fences. We have a lot of good practices in place in terms of height and material, so we could apply some of the same concepts here. We would want to, as other jurisdictions have, define what voltage would be allowed, the maximum joule limit, and staff's recommendation, unlike some of the other examples, would be to allow it in a residential zone district. I think to limit it just to our industrial and agricultural or commercial zones would defeat the bulk of where we're seeing the incidents, which is in our residential zones. So for the time being, I think there's value in applying it residentially. It's where our bear incidents are occurring. I have been discussing with both CPW and BearSmart, and they do have a database of where the incidents are occurring. So we can map those. CPW does do heat mapping, and not surprisingly, all city of Durango is a very hot color compared to other parts. So that reinforces that we're in a unique situation of being surrounded by open space, being pretty dense, having a river in the middle of our community. The bear activity is everywhere. This idea of not allowing these fences or mats adjacent to public streets or sidewalks is an important one. Something that staff wants to look into further is how does Missoula apply that? Because adjacent is a rather discretionary term. And what we could do is certainly say that these are allowed in rear yards, because rear yards are typically fenced and they're away from the right of way. And if someone wants to put it, say an example of a fruit tree in their front yard, we would apply a setback. And initial thinking is why not apply the same setback as the home, which is 20 feet in most zone districts. So that begins to allow some sense of where these uses could be applied. Realizing more and more this concept of loaning out the map, we could adopt more of a temporary use permit. So you could have your long-term, a lot of thought and design needs to go into it, or it could be this mat concept where We have permits in place that are generally issued within days, and those are temporary permits, and that could be a good model for how to deploy the mat. There's been an incident, we just want to redirect the animal within a certain number of days or weeks. That mat goes somewhere else. Working with our Bear Smart partners, there's certainly an opportunity to create an how-to manual. We would identify the permitting process, how to work with either CPW and Bear Smart and others on how to get the mat on loan, and then the material list, an example site plan. That all seems quite manageable. So wrapping up, it's important to note that electric fences have a lot of potential, and they're specifically effective when it comes to the gardens, the fruit trees, and the chicken coops. What came up, and I went down a bit of a rabbit hole on trash, is that there is a limited application for trash, but it's not going to be the solution. And I picked this photo as an example of where you have both a trash structure with electrification going on. So we may see some of that, but I don't want to mislead council that this is also going to fix a lot of the trash issues we see around town. The primary application of electric fencing and mats would be for your gardens, fruit trees, and chicken coops. With that in mind, I think there's a lot of potential for staff to come back, provide a set of regulations, because this is identified to be an effective means at limiting and reducing human and bear conflicts. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Daniel. That was, yeah, super informative, and thanks for going down the rabbit hole on all of that. It's, I'm sure, not something that I thought you would probably be like, oh, I'm gonna, just invest a bunch of hours in this. So thank you for taking the time and presenting that. So you anticipate there being a land use development code permitting kind of process for this, for like a more of like a year-long permit, and then maybe a different for a temporary use permit, or are you thinking one or the other, or maybe both?
I think both would be logical, given that there's different instances where you want to move quickly with a simpler product that takes virtually no installation, and another product that could be around a lot longer, like an electric fence. And electric fences, that example being a good one, tend to be coupled with wildlife fencing. So someone has put a lot of time into their garden, a lot of resources into creating the garden. That's going to be an example of someone putting in a longer term improvement.
Great. I think that's a great idea to have both. And then especially for something that's plug and play, I think a simple application process that's, super quick turnaround, I think is going to bode everybody, like, and probably headaches for, community development staff as well to get an influx of applications at different parts of the year. So having a simple application process and having the ability to just, go for it, instead of trying to create more processes around this, I think is just going to make more sense for everybody. And then maybe conjoining this with an educational aspect of like, oh, you're going to put up this bear mat, here's a pamphlet from Bear Smart or the CPW, like having some common messaging about how to appropriately use the bear mat, some great places to put it if you're going to put something up, and then, maybe some great resources like websites or phone numbers or who they can call to try to, figure out the best solution to their issue. So just some thoughts off the top of my head, but thank you again for putting forth all this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Daniel, thanks for working with Bear Smart and the presentation. I thought it was great, very informative, very appreciative of the fact that we're moving forward on some of these issues to protect, against the bears themselves. It's one of the rare issues that I think we haven't had any negative feedback on it. So there's been a lot of good experience in the county. You've seen that from other municipalities too. So it's great that it's universally accepted as a positive move. I'm just going to piggyback on the speed with which we could issue out loaner mats or something like that. So I think it's going to be really key. The bears get habituated pretty quick, I think, to a good fruit tree or a chicken coop. So the ability to get those loaner mats out quickly, I think, is something a critical consideration. And I appreciate the work that you've done here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. That was very helpful and informative. So is there a cost associated with permitting? Did I miss it or?
We didn't get that far.
Not
By way
yet,
of
okay.
example, our fence.
How much
permits,
is a regular permit for a fence?
$50.
50?
Yeah.
And just sort of a side question, are chickens permitted in the city?
They are.
How many?
Oh,
How many
I
chickens?
don't know precisely how many chickens
okay.
are allowed.
Just curious. Just curious. I think there's sometimes like you can have 5 roosters or 5 chickens and 1
I
rooster.
could look that up if you
Okay,
want
I'm-
me to get back to you.
Just
we-
curious.
We do permit them.
It's one of those things I think I should know and I don't. So and then just regarding so are you suggesting or permitting for both fences and mats?
I think so.
Okay.
The thought being that the mat would be a quicker permit process. And then the fence being something more permanent and slightly more involved.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty, I have a question. Okay, so the shock, did you have your hand up? Nope, okay. The shock value with, the pets, like cats and dogs and possibly toddlers wandering in. Are we going to require them to be insured for that and maybe have like a circuit breaker, fault circuit breaker on that, that outlet?
Well, each outlet is on a circuit, and I can look into if there is an added product that one could add to the system. That does remind me that there would be consideration that you would not want the fence or the mat next to a body of water or a power line. There's definitely some siting considerations, and I can explore and come back if that's the direction with measures to allow the system to trip a circuit.
Okay, that's a good idea. And also some kind of provision in case it rains that they have to bring the mats in or something. Because I'd hate to have a wire that's not insulated properly cause a electric shock.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. It was an excellent presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is city manager updates.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have John with Artaic to do a presentation of our update on our PD and City Hall project. This will be something that will be coming regularly now to you as we've made some progress and as we will continue to make progress on this project.
Great, thank you. Mayor, members of the council, again, on behalf of the project team, I'm extremely excited to be here for this generational project for the city of Durango. So in this presentation, we plan on going through the guiding principles that are really directing this project, the overall project approach, the process we've gone through to select the major project team members, overall schedule, and what to expect next. So again, my name is John Usery. I'm with Artaic Group. I'm a senior project manager, acting as the point of contact for the city. I'm working closely with Braden Demerly, project manager. And all of our work is guided by John Bills, our principal in charge. We are working as a project management firm, working as an extension of the city in an advisory capacity to help manage this construction project. Our resume includes extensive civic project experience that with law enforcement, as well as experience here in Durango with Animas High School and in the surrounding area. So next we want to talk about the guiding principles that the entire project team is working to uphold to help guide decisions. This includes ensuring safety, security for all, fostering an engaged and connected community, advancing equity, access, and inclusion, being good stewards of city assets, promoting health, wellness, and environmental stewardship, and upholding accountability and sustainability. These guiding principles are not something that were derived from outside firms on behalf of the city. This is really our way of furthering the city's mission and really ensuring that this project helps further the goals that are already established in the 2024 strategic plan. So again, this is a city-driven project. So here we're showing our mechanisms for making sure the project team is obtaining direction on all elements by the city of Durango. Our executive committee, consisting of multiple departments, including city administration, community development, police, finance, public works, and engineering, that's really the overarching body that guides the week-to-week decisions that don't rise to the level of city council. We also have a design advisory group consisting of similar individuals as well as other project stakeholders that's providing overarching design guidance, including prioritizations of the program, spaces, overarching key functions of the building. And then we have user groups consisting of city staff. These are really everyone that's going to be working in this new facility, having the ability to give input on those smaller individual spaces. Now, our involvement has really been since the bond measure passed in April of 2025 to continue a sales tax measure to help finance this project. But we wanted to recognize all the work that led to that point and the public outreach that the city has undertaken to get to that point. So just over 2 years ago, City Council, this body, approved land swap for the new old 9R historic high school building. Then procured a design team, Reynolds Ash, as well as DLR, to develop a feasibility study and conceptual design for what that new city hall and police station could look like on the new site. Those concepts were presented to City Council, and shortly thereafter, a sales tax measure through the form of a bond was approved by City Council to go for vote. Our job is to continue that detailed stakeholder engagement and regular communications to the community that the city has already worked to establish. So this project is going to be beholden to the same requirements that the city would hold to any project partner looking to develop land within city limits. We will go through a formal land use development process that will include a major site improvement plan. We'll be adhered to a building permit review. We are working closely with the Historic Preservation Board on the old high school building. Since that building was constructed originally in 1916 and is on the State Historic Registry. And as mentioned prior, we will be working with all city staff who will be working in those new spaces to ensure the design meets their needs and flexibility for the future. We are also committed to actively communicating with the community as a whole, all project updates. That includes regular updates to City Council on a monthly or every other month basis, informing neighbors of impacts to them through this project, providing project information through the city website, and working hand in hand with Engage Durango to provide updates on this project. So this project is going to adhere to a construction manager at risk project delivery method. As opposed to more traditional methods of design, bid, build, the city works to bring on a construction manager at risk early in the design phase. That helps inform the design on cost to ensure we are hitting budget, constructability reviews, and has advantages for ensuring that we maintain schedule. This also allows the city more control over decisions by having an independent contract with the CMAR and design team independently that specifically defines their individual roles and how they produce a cohesive project. So again, with cost authorizations for this project delivery method, we competitively procure the CMAR and obtain all rates, fees, general conditions in a competitive setting. In that upfront procurement process, all of those rates are adhered to for the duration of the project. As we progress our design and are able to procure all subcontractors for the project, we lock in those costs through a guaranteed maximum price, and again, review all pay applications and change orders throughout the project to ensure compliance with the terms agreed to in that competitive procurement setting. So some of the benefits, as stated earlier with this project, it does lead to more input on value engineering, helping get input from the subcontractors that will actually be building this project early on in design, produces a more collaborative project with the contractor understanding that design intent up front. Ownership has more input. What we've seen through the pandemic is it's really advantageous in being able to procure long lead items early and ensure that we maintain our project schedule. So through the course of design, design team is going to be responsible for 3 major deliverables: schematic design, roughly 30% design, design development, 60% design. Both of these will have a detailed cost estimate provided by our CMAR to make sure that we are tracking towards our project budget. And then finally, issuance of construction documents that will be used to obtain a building permit and actually construct our renovations and building additions. So again, with this model, before we have full construction documents and look to secure our final GMP, we have the opportunity to procure long lead items, early major trade partners to engage them in shop drawings and other processes. What we've seen in recent years after the COVID pandemic has impacted our industry is typically procuring about 28% of your project costs before construction documents are issued, and contracting the other 70 to 75% once contract documents are issued. Next, we want to talk about our selection process for both the design teams and our CMAR partners. Similar to the competitive process we underwent as your construction manager, we solicited, working hand in hand with the city's procurement department, we solicited qualification statements from all interested candidates, were to obtain interest from candidates not just in the Durango area, but throughout the state and more nationally. Those qualifications were then reviewed by a selection committee consisting of city staff to shortlist 3 candidates to come in for an interview and provide fee proposals. Following that same selection committee made a recommendation and to enter contract negotiations that was reviewed in detail by legal counsel, city staff before execution. So as a result of that, we really excited to be working with HDR as our architect of record. They are led by Julianne Shear as a senior project manager. This firm has national experience, has a really strong national presence, as well as an office here locally in the city of Durango. They're working closely with Roth Shepard Architect, who is one of the premier names with law enforcement facilities here in the Rocky Mountain region. They are led by Brian Berryhill, and they've also teamed with Architectural Resources Group, who works on nationally recognizable historic preservation projects. As a demonstration of their commitment to the city, we're joined here tonight by Julianne and Brian. So again, these are a few of the projects the team has worked on recently, including state capitals, historic preservation projects, judicial projects across the state, as well as nationally. Our selected CMAR team is FCI Constructors. This team is led by Matt Apperly, project manager Stephen Stewart, who's going to be involved with us overseeing the project from start to finish. Project director Tom Boucher as a law enforcement specialist. Sean Merrill is our superintendent overseeing all construction work. And Tim Smith is our pre-construction manager who's working closely with the design team on constructability reviews and costs. Again, with an office here in Durango, they've done very prominent similar projects throughout the state of Colorado, along the Front Range with North Glen, City of Evans, as well as more locally here in Ouray. These projects are financed by taxpayer dollars. It's really important that we reinvest that money through this project back into the community as much as possible. So we wanted to highlight the local presence that both of these firms have, with HDR, again, having an office here in Durango, working recently on Durango Mesa Park, and FCI also having an office here in Durango, working recently on the Durango Fire Station number 2. So next, we just wanted to recognize an initial big win by the city in terms of financing for this project. So since April, they have been working to secure the sale of bonds to finance this project and have actually secured a AA+ rating from S&P Global. That's not something we always see on these projects from municipalities. That's opens up a lot of doors for us in terms of increasing the amount of bond proceeds that we receive, as well as lowering interest rates and just stretching those taxpayer dollars further, getting more bang for our buck. So kudos to city admin and city finance teams on that. So our overall project schedule, we've talked a little bit about the work done to date. We are thoroughly in design, looking to go for a building permit in summer of next year and looking at a groundbreaking ceremony for this project roughly a year from now. We are expecting those construction durations to stretch into 2028 with more detail to come once we finalize the designs on those. Here you can see a zoomed in version of our design schedule. This highlights the schematic design phase we're just about to enter, the cost estimates tied to that, design development phase, cost estimate for that, as well as all of the user input that we have throughout the process to make sure this is designed correctly per the city's standards. And upcoming activities, we are looking to transition into schematic design after finalizing the initial program, and then looking to have a cost estimate ready for review in the early part of next year. With that, I'd like to open it up to questions.
John, thanks so much for the presentation. Appreciate the work you're doing for us. Going back maybe to the design schedule slide, I couldn't quite determine when the 30, 60, and 90s were estimated to be presented back to council.
That's a great point. So we would be looking to present those designs in tandem with our cost estimates. So schematic design would lag from the actual design deliverable. That would be presented to council more in the February, March timeframe.
Okay.
Once we've had a chance to vet that and ensure compliance with our budget.
Okay, great. I've got a couple of questions. This historic building, 9R, we've changed the name of the school district, some kind of acknowledgement of that it used to be 9R and is no longer 9R, is now the Durango School District. I think we've still got some, we definitely still have some folks who went to this school as well. Has there been much conversation around how we're going to try and acknowledge that historical element, not just the building itself, but also the folks who inhabited that building, went to school there, et cetera, et cetera? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the historic preservation, there's a lot of people who have a personal experience with the building. Sometimes it's easy to glance over that when we look at more of the brick and mortar with that. A lot of our due diligence to date has been more understanding the condition of the building, but we will absolutely make a concerted effort to honor the experience of going back over 100 years with the people who live here in Durango.
Yeah, if we could have that as part of the presentations coming up, or in some way, shape, or form, we could share with council, to be really appreciated. And I do know that we didn't hand you a very good building, so I appreciate all the rehab that's going into that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Outreach, and then all the points that will be kind of updated on this project. I think that's great. I noticed a couple of the general contractors, they said LEED certification. We're not chasing LEED certification on this project, are we?
We are not chasing LEED certification on this. We just wanted to understand their abilities to meet sustainability goals.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Why not?
Great, thank you for the presentation. And I just, regarding the project schedule timeline, and it shows here, we are here. And so looks like we're talking about a groundbreaking in July 26th. And I guess you have a July 28, hopefully, project completion. Imagine you've done historic buildings in the past. Your team has experience with that.
Correct.
And have they typically gone on time and on budget?
Yes, I think I'd extend that to the broader HDR FCI team as well. It is our goal to bring this in within budget and within schedule. If there are any hiccups, it's our responsibility to identify those early on where we can respond to those as opposed to later when we were to experience a more impactful schedule delay. But yes, we all have a great experience with on time and on budget.
And so you have October 28th. And so, I guess as things move along, you'll know how on schedule you are. I guess, I don't know if this is more for our team than for you all, but is there some leeway allowed? If we go, is there maybe 3 months? Is there six months? Is there something like a little cushion in there in the event that things don't go well, or there's some mystery underneath the buildings or something along those lines?
Well, I think there's always flexibility in a schedule. So what they're showing you is a proposed schedule.
Yes.
I think those are the dates they think that they're going to hit. If anything comes back during an update, I'm sure we can update the schedule to show we found and we needed another month, or maybe we could bring it in. So I wouldn't say that they're showing you this and promising this is exactly how it's going to go. It's how we see it today. And if anything changes, we can
I
bring that
guess
back.
it'll get adjusted along the way versus saying we should have a project completion between October and January. But I just, given that I have some experience in historic renovations and they almost never go as expected, there's always some mystery that is presented along the way. That's why I was sort of surprised to see like an actual October versus a range.
Absolutely. And this is really intended to show rough timelines as opposed to specific dates included. We have quarterly milestones in our time scale here. So this is really intended to be dynamic. We understand time is money. So we want to be as efficient with the city's money as possible. And that's probably our biggest driver of the schedule. At this point, you're right. There's absolutely going to be unforeseen conditions, things that we don't know with any renovation project. But based on the information we know now, we feel pretty confident in hitting these dates. And if there is an unforeseen condition, things underground that there was no way of knowing beforehand, you're right, that could have impacts. And our job is to try and understand those as soon as possible so we can plan for those with having a limited cost impact to the city.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you. And you're going to come quarterly? Is that what, quarterly and brief us?
I think our goal is to come every month, but it may not make sense every month that during certain phases of the projects, we'll have to coordinate that with city staff, but between once a month and once every other month.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Just a quick follow-up question, John. The police department building timeline's an extra year past the construction of city council building. Is that related to the special nature of the building, or is that more particular to the parking garage? And are all of those things being, like, you're giving me the final timeline, will the building be done before we're dealing with the parking garage type thing?
Yeah, so this also takes into account the secure parking structure. I think there's a few complications. This includes a building addition component. It's also currently an occupied facility. So we need to figure out how to make sure the city can still maintain functionality while working on this project. So we've accommodated a larger time to account for more of the potentials with phasing that element.
And then I had just one clarification. It might be for the city manager. I think the bond measure was for 61 million, but do we expect that we're staying underneath that 61 million at this point, or were there I think there were additional expectations that we we're going to have to find some other.
Yes, the portion of it was the bond funding plus the selling of City Hall and the police department.
Okay.
So there was always an expectation it was going to exceed that, and that we were able to provide that buffer with City Hall and PD, the sale of those buildings.
Is there a timeline on the sale of these buildings, or does that wait until you've fully inhabited the buildings and then we get around to it then?
I would say that it's probably going to be coming here as we get farther into the design constructions. We're not ready for it today.
Sure.
But it would be something that would come back probably here. I'd just be guessing, but it'd be on its way and be figured into the schedule.
Yeah, I understood. We were talking ballparks. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Okay, so my preference would be that we have more comprehensive bids than change orders along the way. Do you think we can manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal is to minimize risk as early as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you all.
And the next item on the agenda is committee, board, and liaison reports.
Love going first for these. Had the Chamber of Commerce meeting this morning. They had some bylaw amendments to make the organization run a little smoother in 2026. Board's going to vote on those proposed changes after attorney review at the annual meeting retreat in January. Sarah Tober from the Economic Development Alliance is there, kind of going over the overview of the alliance and what they've accomplished over the last few years. Then the chamber will be a big part of the 150th celebration of Colorado statehood planning. So there's a lot that's going into this 150th anniversary. So Power of Place magazine, passport program for kids, oral history project, a lot of really cool things are going on that front. Also last week I had my council office hours, met with constituents for nearly 2 hours. There was they kept coming and I just kept talking. So we discussed current multimodal projects, the Camino underpass design, federal presence in our community, wildfire resiliency code, zoning, Antelope River Trail speed limits, et cetera, et cetera. So all great issues to speak with the community about. Also attended my third Park Elementary Mock City Council meeting that last week. So Chief isn't here, but Ben always does a great job with corralling the kids. I mean, it's not just like one group of kids. It's 3 separate classrooms of kids coming in and doing it all over again. So Luke, great job. You put together some great presentations, really threw Chief under the bus on a lot of them. So great job on that. Yeah, it was really fun to be a part of that and show them what engagement looks like and what it's like to be on the dais. Last one is we had our Community Development Commission and City Council joint meeting last week. And so it's all about communication and ensure expectations are being met. So it was great. It was good to hear all the things that we can do to kind of cinch up some loose ends, and it's great to be able to make sure that we're on the same page moving forward. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. And a few things. I attended the Economic Development Alliance on Jessica's behalf. I also attend, but this time I was there as a city council representative. But most importantly, I want to remind everybody about the AI conference that is at the FLC. It's going to be on December 16th. And will be all day from 8:30 to 4, and it is free. So I think that's something that I know I need always to be informed about is the latest in AI. So I hope you all attend. We also, in the morning meeting, had a briefing, real estate briefing from Dan Corman. We had a briefing from the Southwest Education Coalition with Dr. Cheshire and some other folks. We also had a briefing on wolves, on a wolf refuge, which was really fascinating to me. And so those are, I think, the most important items to inform you all about. I also attended the CDC meeting, and it was our first, or at least my first meeting with a commission. And we got to meet everybody and introduce ourselves, which we had not done yet. And also I had a chance to attend the FAB meeting. I saw the mayor there as well. So I'm hoping to attend a couple of more of those meetings as well, so I can continue to inform you all of all the great things that are happening on this city, and also really to thank the volunteers that serve on those commissions on our behalf and make decisions on your behalf as well. So thank you all for those who volunteer on those commissions. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for attending the Alliance board meeting. David and I were slinging drinks at Zia Cantina and raised almost $12,000 for the Durango Food Bank. So I couldn't make that one, but We had a good time, I think. I did go to the investor meeting and spoke on behalf of the city, and Councilor Gonzalez filled you in on that. We also had a community development meeting, co-meeting with all of us in the Community Development Commission, where we went over some priorities and like everyone's roles and different things. I thought that went great. And then our URA board meeting yesterday that we all attended as well. And I think it's exciting what the URA is doing and some new potential URA zones to help spur development. And so, yes, there we go.
Wow, a lot happened. Thank you, everybody, for attending all the meetings. So I did go to most of these meetings. So the only thing different that they didn't do was that I attended the Regional Housing Alliance meeting, and we're trying to figure out how to go forward with the current climate in funding. And so I think that we will probably present a proposal in the future here. And then other than that, I have council office hours tomorrow at noon at the library if anybody would like to come down and visit. That's all I have.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is section 7, public comment on items under consideration of adoption.
Public comment is encouraged on agenda items set for consideration and a vote by the council tonight. Public comments on items not set for consideration by the council come later in the meeting. Please begin your comments by stating the agenda item set for a vote you intend to speak on, your full name, and if you are a resident of the city of Durango. Make your comments directly to the council. Do not expect a response from the council or staff. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, unless modified by the council. Unused time is not transferable to other speakers. Comments must be specific to the item you identified when you began your comments. Profanity, hate speech, personally derogatory remarks, speech unrelated to the item you identified, or other speech that is disruptive to the meeting will be ruled out of order by the chair, and any remaining time will be forfeited by the speaker. Exceeding the time limit infringes on the rights of others and is out of order. Only a majority vote of the council can modify time limits. Please note, you must sign up prior to the mayor calling the item on the agenda. Signing up after the item is called will result in your name not being called to speak.
Thank you. And there's quite a few items that are going to be spoken on tonight. But the first person I have signed up is Jill Southworth, and that's for item 8.2.2 on the consent agenda, which is an ordinance providing for the regulation and control of the design, construction, quality of materials, erection, installation, alteration, repair, location, relocation, replacement, addition to use or maintenance of 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhomes within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Residential Code for 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Good evening, council members. My name's Jill Southworth, and I am with Bear Smart Steering Committee. I'm just reiterating what the other gentleman said, just that we're getting so much more bear visitation in the city, and of course, because of that, there's the possibility of more human and bear impact conflict. So that's why we're actually wanting to have the bear mats and electric fencing. Right now, there's thousands of electric fences in the county, and there isn't a problem. Most kids in the county, especially the ones at Needham Elementary, where I used to work, had been whacked by a couple of those fences and were fine. The modern electric fences that we have now don't cause fires. I know that that was something else that was being brought up. They're a temporary installation. They're very easy to remove as well. And as long as there's chickens in the county, there's going to be an issue with bears coming in as well. Bear Smart has a big education piece already as far as letting people know how to use these bear mats and other temporary solutions that we have. And that's all I got. Please consider it. Thank you.
Do I need to make a motion to suspend the rules? Okay, that didn't apply to okay, I'm gonna make a motion to suspend the rules to allow the public comment for bears. Not on the agenda. Sorry. I don't know what to say. Bears.
So technically, that's not on the agenda for a vote, and she should have spoken under
Yeah.
item 13. And the reason I would remind you to do that is because you have to maintain those rules to enforce those rules when it's necessary, when there's 100 people here.
Yeah.
Right. So I second it.
Okay. Can we do an acclamation vote on this one? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So there was two folks to speak for non-public comment items. And so the idea is that if it's related to bear mats, they could speak now. Did Antonio Espinoza want to speak on the bear items? No problem. And then Charles D. Fernandano. Thank you. I can move forward with agenda-related items if you'd like. There's two individuals signed up to speak on 11.1, which is a resolution for water justice on the Animas River. The first individual is Liliana Benally.
They're presenting. Y'all are presenting on the item, correct? Yes.
Okay. And so Carolyn Cummins is part of that presentation group? Oh, okay. You're more than welcome to come up. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Dr. Carolyn Cummins. I reside at 201 Alpine Drive in Durango, and I'm the director of the Four Corners Water Center at Fort Lewis College. I'm here to express my support for the resolution brought forth by students in the water justice class at Fort Lewis College regarding the rights of the Animas River. I'd first like to thank Dr. Becky Clausen and all of her students for bringing this resolution and for their diligent work on the project over the course of the fall semester. At the beginning of this meeting, the Indigenous land acknowledgement was read, and we read a similar acknowledgement at the beginning of every Four Corners Water Center event, extending our acknowledgement of the land to the waters that flow through Durango. So we're in the Animas River watershed, a tributary to the San Juan River, which flows into the Colorado River. Over 30 tribes call the Colorado River Basin home and have stewarded these waters since time immemorial. This water acknowledgement is essential because the waters that flow through our community know no boundaries. This is a fact that the town of Silverton, city of Durango, city of Farmington, communities on Navajo Nation, and other downstream communities experienced firsthand on August 15th, 2015, when over 3 million gallons of acid mine waste flowed downstream from the Gold King Mine Superfund site. According to the EPA, millions of gallons of acid mine drainage enter the Animas River on a yearly basis, but the Gold King mine spill was a wake-up call, resulting in many groups and community members calling for better treatment and protection of the waters that we call home, both for our local communities and our neighbors downstream. Just after the 10-year anniversary of the Gold King mine spill, the resolution brought before you today would be another leap forward in sustaining the future for the river that is the lifeblood of our community. As part of the resolution, the Four Corners Water Center is charged to report to the City Council on the health of the Animas River every year. And as the director of the center and a freshwater ecologist, I'm happy to do my part to ensure the success of this resolution by preparing this report alongside my colleagues, students, and community partners. When I think of this resolution as a freshwater ecologist, I think of the aquatic microorganisms, plants, invertebrates, and fish that will benefit from the support of their inherent rights. As an educator, I think of the many students who will continue to study, advocate for, and be inspired by the Animas River, contributing to its sustainable and healthy future. As a resident of Durango, I think of the pride our community can take in being one of the few local governments in the United States to acknowledge the rights of nature. And finally, I think of myself as a kid growing up in La Plata County. The Animas River was a backdrop of my childhood and teenage years, a place to cool off on a hot day, to challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone, to take out-of-town family members to show them how beautiful our city is. And as I experienced growing up, the benefits that the river confers to our community's resilience, well-being, and identity are innumerable. I hope we'll give back to the Animas River today by acknowledging its inherent rights to flow and flourish. Thank you.
And the next individual signed up to speak on 11.2, which is a resolution authorizing the city to request Colorado's third congressional delegation to initiate an investigation on the actions of the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, which is 11.2, is Barbara Day.
My name is Barbara Day and I live in Durango, Colorado. I joined my Durango community on Tuesday, October 28th to show support for the kidnapped family, and while expressing my First Amendment rights to assemble, I was injured and terrified by tear gas from ICE, paid for by my taxes, its effects hurting me into the next day with lingering effects continuing. So much talk about illegals. It was ICE who kidnapped a father and his children on the way to school. The family was legal. They were following all the legal steps offered to them by the United States immigration law to apply for asylum. They were fleeing conditions in Colombia where their family members were being assassinated. I was happy, but soon alarmed when I learned that the Durango police attempted to do a welfare check of the family earlier in the day at 6 a.m., but they were refused by ICE, being turned away. And I believe that should be investigated because the Durango police have the mission to protect and serve our community. I have lots of experience attending protests where I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, although we called them demonstrations back then. I was a demonstrator. I was 16 when I first marched for women's reproductive health care and made several signs and petitions for an end to the Vietnam War. We followed Martin Luther King's principles of nonviolent civil disobedience. The demonstrations back then were always peaceful and followed a routine. Demonstrators would assemble, give speeches, even chain up the fences with our friends linked together. There were chants and music, and reporters would interview us for the newspapers asking, why were you there? But then about 20 to 30 minutes later, police would announce an order to disperse by using a bullhorn to warn us that violators who ignored the warning would be arrested. We all understood that the time for First Amendment assembly was over, and most of us would then back away. The few people who violated the order were picked up by two policemen and pushed into the nearby police bus where they would go to jail overnight. There was never any tear gas, pepper spray, or people getting dragged or injured. But on October 28th, what I saw here was complete authoritarianism using weapons, expressing might over right. They broke several laws, specifically 10 U.S. Code, Federal Code 254, proclamation to disperse. Basically, there's specific order to disperse rules that were not followed, and thereby the demonstrators who were there being very peaceful were brutalized quite heavily.
The next item on, or the next item that will be spoken on is 11.4, which is a resolution authorizing funding to the Transportation Services Fund for temporary shuttle service to the Emergency Warming Center. And the first individual is Linda Barnes.
Hi, my name is Linda Barnes, and I am a member of live in Durango and have been working with the Emergency Warming Center Council. I want to acknowledge and thank the Durango City Council members and the staff, as well as supportive community, for making the Emergency Warming Center possible this year. We look forward to welcoming our vulnerable neighbors this winter at night when the temperature outside is predicted to be 15 degrees or lower. Durango is demonstrating its care for the current and growing number of people across our state and nation who experience housing insecurity. A warming center is demonstrating the willingness to care for those without adequate heat at night this winter. We have not asked the city for any direct financial support. The Warming Center is funded by caring nonprofit entities and individuals, as well as a large contingent of volunteers. However, we are going to ask the city to provide transportation to and from the Warming Center, to the Transit Center, or to Manna when we are open. Having transportation available for the estimated 20 to 25 nights between December and February will alleviate concerns in the community regarding people going by foot through the neighborhoods or near Park Elementary School, which is 2 blocks east and north of Sacred Heart Parish Hall. We will be encouraging Warming Center guests to travel to downtown Durango by a route that will not pass Park Elementary School, but transportation directly out of the neighborhood would further assure that there is no contact or little contact between our Warming Center guests and anyone associated with Park Elementary School. Our goal is to demonstrate care and safety for all. Our ask is small and represents a creative partnership between the private and public sector in Durango. Thank you.
The next individual signed up to speak is Christian Barnes for 11.4.
Thank you. My name is Christian Barnes. I live a block away from Sacred Heart. I rise asking for transparency on this issue. I attended the Warming Center volunteer meeting as a concerned individual, actually, as somebody that wanted to participate in it. I don't know, did anybody on the city council attend that? Okay. I was shocked when I left at the lack of, what would I would say, capability of the organizations to actually handle these individuals. They say there's 20 cots that will be provided, but when I talk to other individuals, they say they can have up to 75 to 77 folks in that building. They're asking for funds for transportation use, and at the same time, they wouldn't disclose how much Sacred Heart is charging them for utilization of the facility. So I think that's the first key in transparency, is what is the amount that Sacred Heart is getting from, and who is the donation coming from? Which organization? Is it NINA? Those are some things that need to be answered. I'm not against the idea of this at all. I understand the need for it in the community, but I would like a little bit more transparency. One word that was brought up by one of the counselors or professionals that they described that are going to be there along with the volunteers is psychotic. Those are the people that will potentially be a golf ball shot away from Park Elementary and from families in that community, which includes my family. They have not raised funds for an AED, which is an automated external defibrillator. They gave basic, very basic CPR lessons to folks. My other concern is the demographic of the individuals that were there to volunteer. I would say the median age of those individuals was over 65 years old. And I do not think they would be capable to handle a situation when you may have a psychotic incident breakout. That's all. I'm not opposed to it. I would just like a little more transparency as far as where the funding's coming from and why the taxpayers would be responsible for providing that.
And the next individual signed up to speak for 11.4 is Julie Cooley. And Julie Cooley did indicate that she's online.
Julie, you should be able to unmute now. If needed, you can use Control-Shift-M to unmute your mic. Sometimes that helps.
We could potentially come back to.
Yeah.
Julie. Okay, thank you. And so the next item that there was to be public comment on. Oh, go ahead. I'm
Hey,
sorry.
Ben, apparently there was a person who wanted to speak on 11.1, but they couldn't figure out how to get on. So Shirley has the details. Could you facilitate that?
Mayor. Estrella Patino is online requesting to speak. I don't know if we need a motion to go back and allow her to make a comment. So she's, I think she's,
We'll just make
Suspend the rules.
Yeah, make a motion to suspend the rules to allow someone who hasn't signed up to speak on the immigration 11.2 item.
so moved.
Sí, buenas noches.
I'll second.
Estela,
Affirmation, all in favor?
Estrella, si ahí estás, puedes empezar.
oh, no me sale. Ahora sí, buenas noches.
Sí, buenas noches, aquí estamos.
Soy Estela, soy la
Wait,
mamá de
say
los
one
niños.
moment so she can do translation. So tell her one moment.
A ver, espera un minuto, ahorita viene la que va a traducir.
Are we also suspending rules to provide 6 minutes for interpretation?
I'll suspend the rules to allow or I will make a motion to suspend the rules to allow 6 minutes for interpretation.
Second.
Aye.
Okay, the interpreter is ready.
Thank you, Liz.
Sí, señora Estela, adelante, nada más haga pausas para que yo le pueda interpretar, por favor, pero puede continuar.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Estela, soy la mamá y esposa de los detenidos, de los dos niños que me detenieron el 27 de octubre a las 7 de la mañana.
Sí, permítame. Hi, good evening. My name is Estela, and I am the wife and mother of the children of the family who was detained on October 27th. Adelante.
De Kevin y Kevin Daniel y Hannah Michelle, que fueron detenidos con el papá el 27 de octubre a las 7:30 de la mañana. Iban hacia el colegio, el niño iba hacia la high school y la niña hasta la Miller. Y fueron detenidos.
Okay, permítame. Yes, I am the mother of Kevin Daniel, who was on his way to high school, and Hannah Michelle, who was on her way to middle school, and they were detained on October 27th at 7:30 in the morning. Adelante.
Y fueron detenidos, de ahí no volví a saber nada de los niños, desde las 7:30 hasta las 9:30 de la noche, que el niño me llamó, me hizo una llamada.
From the time that they were detained at 7:30, I didn't know anything about my children until 9:30 p.m. when my son, Kevin Daniel, made a call. Adelante.
Y me dice el niño, ma, soy yo, soy Daniel, mamá, me golpearon. Mamá, ¿qué pasó? Que nos amarraron como yo fuera un delincuente. Mamá, me golpearon a mi hermana.
Yes, he said, Mom, it is I. They beat me up. What happened? They tied me up and they also did it to my sister.
Mm,
Adelante.
dame un segundito porque es que me emocioné, me fue.
Give me a second because I'm very emotional.
Mami, nos encerraron sin luz, que nos dio la luz del sol, amarrados. Mamá, estoy raspado, me rasparon un brazo. No nos han dado comida, no nos han dado agua.
Yes, Mom, they locked us up and we are here without any light, without any solar light. I'm bruised. I'm very hurt. They haven't fed us and they haven't given us any water.
Me dijo, mamá, me tienen esposado, me tienen amarrado de cintura y pie, y las esposas me están cortando las manos, no me han soltado acá, me tienen, aquí donde estamos amarrados. Nos han tratado como un delincuente.
Mom, they have tied me up. I have handcuffs on my hands and they're really cutting me. I'm tied by my waist to my feet. They're treating us like we're a delinquent.
Dijo mi papá, a mi papá le pregunté, hijo, ¿están los tres? Dijo, sí, mamá, estamos los tres. A mi papá nos echaron en carro diferente. A mi papá lo amarraron, lo golpearon, está bastante golpeado. También lo tienen amarrado. Mi papá pregunta qué va a pasar con nosotros. Le contestaban, no nos importa sus hijos, no nos importa.
Yes, I asked him where his father was, and he said that he was put in a different car. He's also beaten up. He's also tied up, and he kept asking what was going to happen to his children. And they kept telling him, we don't care what happens to your children. Adelante.
Y mi papá decía acá que preguntaba qué iba a pasar con nosotros, lo golpeaban y dijo, mami, nos tienen todos tres, dijo, a Janita le iban a apartar, último pues no lo apartaron, pero nos tienen a todos tres aquí en este dijo, en una celda. Mi papá está amarrado y tenemos que hacer voltear a la niña para poder hacer nuestras necesidades porque estamos todos tres, no hay una persona adecuada para cuidar a Hanna, tenemos que hacer voltear a la niña para poder hacer las necesidades nosotros, estábamos todos tres en un mismo ensello, como una piecita, que no había ni una silla, y ellos hicieron un planchón como de cemento para poder acostarnos ahí. Dijo, pedíamos, solamente nos dieron una botella de agua y unas papas, a la hora que eran, desde las 7 de la mañana y no habían comido hasta las 9:30 de la noche.
Yes, they separated us. They have us in one cell, and there was nobody to take a turn with Hannah, and so she's here with us. We're all in a cell, and she has to turn around whenever we have to use the restroom. And there's no chairs, there's only a cement bed, and the only thing that they have given us is chips and water. That's it since 7:30 this morning. Adelante.
Fue la única llamada y la última llamada que volví a recibir de ellos. Pasaron más de 36 horas. Volví a recibir una llamada el miércoles 29, que fue de la niña.
And then that was the only and last call. And then more than 36 hours went by when I got a call on Wednesday, the 29th, from my daughter.
Y me dice la niña, mamá, nos detuvieron. Me cuenta, mamá, tengo que contarte algo. Dije, ¿qué, hija? Dijo, mamá, cuando apartaron a mi papá, lo echaron en otro carro, golpearon a mi hermano, y a mi hermano lo iban a echar en otro carro. A último, me dejaron a mí sola en el carro de nosotros, y de ahí sacaron a mi papá, a mi hermano lo esposaron, y yo me quedé en el carro sola, y había uno de la ICE, comenzó a tocarme mis partes íntimas.
And she told me, she said, Mom, they stopped us. And I have to tell you something. When they put us in the car, they were separating us and they were going to put my brother and my dad in another car. And when I was alone in another car, one of the ICE agents started touching my privates.
Y entonces mi hermano se dio de cuenta, me decía mamá, y mi hermano se dio de cuenta y mi hermano comenzó a decir, no me toquen a mi hermana. Y fue cuando lo golpearon bastante porque él se metió a defenderla y fue cuando ya pasó todo eso, la pusieron con el papá y se la llevaron. Y ella fue cuando dijo, mamá, tan injusto.
And then my brother noticed and he kept saying, don't touch my sister. And then he was beaten up. Later, Hannah was put with her dad in the same car.
Excuse me, you know what? We're running over time. Do you think you could?
I'm going to make
wrap
a
it up?
motion to suspend the rules and allow her
Van a
to
hacer una
finish her
moción para
story.
suspender
Second.
las reglas para que pueda usted terminar su historia. Adelante.
Acclamation vote.
No había una persona apropiada para cuidar a mi niña. A pesar de eso, ella me contaba, mamá, y eran palabras fuertes que le decían a ella, porque yo le preguntaba que qué iba a pasar con el papá y con el hermano, y volvía y le decía, no nos importa, no nos importa. Y eran palabras muy groseras para ellos, para fuertes, y entonces decía, Januta me dijo, mamá, nosotros, ¿qué hemos hecho? No somos malos, somos trabajadores, no le hacemos daño a nadie. Ella me preguntaba por qué nos tiene detenido, por qué me hicieron eso a mí. Y ella una y otra historia me repite, cada que me llama mamá, ¿por qué me tocaron mis cenitos? ¿Por qué me tocan mis partes íntimas?
There was no proper person to take care of my daughter. She kept asking, what have we done? We are not mean. We're not bad. What have we done? She said, Mom, what have we done? And why did somebody touch my breast? Adelante, señora.
Para mí, pues, no quiero que vuelva a pasar eso con los niños. Pido que se investigue esto hasta el fondo. Con lo que hicieron con mi hija, pueden hacer con muchos niños más. Y no quiero que pase más esto. Yo me siento psicológicamente mal a escuchar a mis hijos, a escuchar a mi esposo, todo lo que me dice, cómo lo golpearon, cómo lo trataron como si fueran unos delincuentes.
So for me, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. No, I don't want this to happen to any other children. I ask you to please investigate deep on a deep manner. So because I feel so bad when I hear my children asking, and I don't want this to happen to any other kid.
Después, como a las 7:30 me llamó mi esposo. Me decía, hice lo que pude con mis hijos. Me tocó que dormir en una silla con la niña, amarrados de las manos y esposados.
And
No
at
nos dieron comida.
At 7:30, my husband called and he said, I did everything that I could with my children. I had to sleep on a chair while I was tied up and my daughter on my lap.
Y pues yo me apoyé a muchas personas a ver si de pronto me entregaban mis hijos y nunca tuve una respuesta de ellos. Estuve pendiente de ellos a ver si me llamaban, pero nunca me llamaron. Bueno, eso le dije yo también a mi esposo y le he dicho a todo el mundo que necesitaba que me entregaran mis hijos y nunca me llamaron.
I got
Fueron
support
tantas
from a
cosas.
lot of people. I got support from a lot of people to see if they could give me my children. I had the support I needed for my children to come back to me.
Y pues Fernando me decía, Estela, fue duro, fue muy duro porque nos sacaron, el niño está marcado con las esposas, esposado. Cada que yo preguntaba por mis hijos, qué iba a pasar con mis hijos, me los tropeaban, le gritaban, no nos importa, no nos importa. Nos trataban como si yo fuera cometido un delito grave, nosotros aquí la comunidad puede decir que nosotros aquí somos personas de bien, trabajamos, no le hacemos daño a nadie, no somos delincuentes.
And then Fernando would tell me, and that every time he would ask what was going to happen with the children, they would treat him like he was a criminal. We are not criminals. We are hardworking people.
Y nos creemos mucho en Dios y todo, pues se sabe que Dios todo lo ve y lo único que le pido es que esto no se quede impune, que haga justicia porque fueron mis hijos, mi esposo, mañana pueden más niños, más niñas que pueden estar en esta misma situación. Y yo emocionalmente no me encuentro bien de ver todo lo que pasaron mis hijos. Llegamos a un país que nos protegiera y no sentí la protección que realmente necesitaba.
We believe in God and God sees everything. I want justice for my husband and my children and other children in this situation. We came to a country so that we could be protected, and we're not.
Pues lo único que yo quiero es que no se quede impune esto, que siga la investigación hasta a fondo con lo que pasó con mis hijos y mi esposo, porque fue una crueldad lo que hicieron con ellos, porque nosotros no venimos a hacerle nada a nadie, somos gente trabajadora, luchamos por dar un buen estatus a mis hijos, queremos salir adelante. Fue muy duro lo que nos hicieron. Para ellos la niña quedó marcada psicológicamente por lo que le hicieron y al niño.
The only thing that I want is that this does not go unpunished. I want a deep investigation. I want this cruelty to end. We did not come to harm anybody. We're not criminals. We came here to get ahead in life.
Bueno, ya por lo último, pues lo único que yo pido que ningún niño debe pasar esto que pasaron mis hijos, como los míos, como ningún niño en el mundo se merece respeto, amor, ni a los padres que son de bien. Ninguno se merece lo que me pasó a ellos. Psicológicamente ellos están mal.
The only thing I ask is that no other children goes through what my children have gone through. Children deserve respect, love, and their parents. No one deserves what my kids went through.
Thank you.
A todos le agradezco por escucharme y
Thank you
espero
for
que
listening to me.
todos alcemos la mano por los niños, que no vuelvan a pasar esto.
Thank you for listening to me, and let's all raise our hands to protect our children.
Muchísimas gracias, muy amable.
Thank you very
Gracias
much.
a todos.
Thank you, everyone.
The next two individuals have signed up to speak under 12.1, which is an ordinance regarding consideration of the annual operating appropriation ordinance for the budget year 2026. And the first individual is Eric Nelson.
Nelson. I'm a mechanical engineer and Durango resident who uses the 12th Street and Camino Crossing multiple times a day. Today, it will be 6 times. First, I want to talk about safety. Over the course of a month, I recorded data each time I used the crossing, simply trying to get to work and back home. 31% of my crossings involved a driver running a red light. 83% had at least one flashing red violation. During rush hour, I averaged 4 flashing red violations per use. I've seen USPS, city maintenance, fire, even DPD vehicles violate the signal. People have gone to the hospital trying to cross the road in this signal. I estimate I've used the crossing over 1,000 times. I've never seen a single instance of traffic enforcement. I respectfully ask that each of you use the crossing during rush hour several times. Second, I want to talk about community support. This is not something that just benefits pedestrians and cyclists. Downtown businesses gain direct car-free access to the city core. Police have fewer traffic investigations. Drivers face fewer sudden stops during rush hour. West Side hotels, stores, skate park users, pickleball players gain safe access to downtown instead of crossing 4 lanes. Families can walk from an afternoon at the Powerhouse to dinner on Main. Don't forget, soon we'll have a child care center on one side of a state highway and half the city on the other. CDOT avoids ongoing complaints, and the city gains a project that aligns with our multimodal, Vision Zero, and 2030 championship goals. The third, I want to talk about cost. Council can appreciate that the city has allocated money to this project since 2004, nearly 2 decades without physical progress. At some point, taxpayers want their investment to produce an outcome, not just endless design cycles. The main argument against the project is cost, and cost matters, but so does context. The project was first estimated at $2 to $4 million in 2006, less than we recently spent on river trail renovations and in rain for the recent pickleball construction. Due to inflation and years of delay, it's 5 to 8 times that amount. Delay will only further increase the expense of this project, and I hope that cost will not include a fatality before we decide it's worth it. When discussing cost of the underpass, please, it's important to remember the cost of not fixing it. In closing, I want to recognize the real budget challenges that each of you face and thank the City Council and staff for their hard work. Now, it's time that we go through with this project. The community has been asking for almost a quarter century.
And the next individual signed up to speak on the same item is John Simpson, and Mr. Simpson is online.
Mayor Yazzie, John Simpson, city resident. My comments are concern the annual operating appropriation ordinance, item 12.1, and the capital appropriation ordinance, item 12.2. And more specifically, the accuracy of the underlying financial estimates guiding your 2026 budget. The current budget documents present a misleading narrative of our financial standing. The method used to determine the critical 2026 beginning fund balances, our starting cash, is fundamentally flawed. It relies on the assumption that huge portions of the 2025 expense budget were actually spent. However, the city's own FAB presentation last week confirmed a substantial gap between the budget and the actual spending. The reality is the city has consistently demonstrated a pattern of over-budgeting and underperforming on major capital expenditures the last 6 years. This is confirmed by significant project delays mentioned throughout the materials, such as the College Mesa Water Treatment Plant $3 million tank, which I have seen probably for the last 5 years. You just heard about the underpass. As a council, one of your most important jobs is to provide a high-level oversight of capital projects by tracking if the city manager is completing his projects on time and on schedule. The inevitable result of over-budgeting is that the 2025 final expenditure totals will be drastically lower than budgeted. And our 2026 starting cash balances will be significantly higher than the low figures currently presented to you. If you have an accurate financial picture, you could build the underpass, for example. I anticipate staff may suggest that they will simply carry forward the uncompleted budgeted projects. I must point out that city budgets are annual in nature. Appropriations are for prior years expire at the end of the year. The city manager should be responsible for completing a one-year budget on time and on schedule. Staff cannot carry forward projects not completed. To remind you, Julie Brown's fraud used this concept of non-departmental miscellaneous expenses in carry forward projects. Relying on these flawed numbers compromises your decision-making, particularly the upcoming rate setting discussion in item 12.3. That entire justification is based on a false sense of urgency and scarcity due to low fund balances when actually we have high fund balances. I urge the council to delay the adoption of the ordinance and direct staff to recalculate the 2026 beginning balances using the actual realistic 2025 expense projections. Mayor Yazzie.
And the next four individuals signed up to speak on 12.2, which is an ordinance regarding consideration of the annual capital appropriation ordinance for the budget year 2026, with the first individual being Claire Carver.
Good evening. My name is Claire Carver. I am a lifelong resident of Durango, a downtown business owner, as well as a member or board member of the Powerhouse Science Center. And I'm here today to voice my strong support of the design for the 12th Street crossing. I want to start with a lived experience. When I grew up in Durango, I was not allowed to use that crossing. As a kid, my parents would never allow that. A generation later, nothing has changed. It remains intimidating, chaotic. And with Durango's growth and increasing tourism, this is a problem that's not going to go away. Hoping the intersection will somehow become safer is not a strategy. The 12th Street underpass aligns with many of our priorities. It directly supports Vision Zero by creating a truly protected space for people walking and biking, not hoping drivers will stop at a red light. Second, it creates a seamless connection between downtown, the Powerhouse campus, and our world-class Animas River Trail. It's not just a transportation upgrade, it's actually an extension of our economic downtown. It draws visitors further into town, encourages them to stay longer, and supports local businesses. It enhances the visitor experience as well as the daily lifestyle of our residents. I also want to highlight an often overlooked benefit of that, and it's the climate impact. I did my master's degree in greenhouse gas management, and the single most cost-effective strategy is multimodal infrastructure. On a per metric ton dollar amount, it is our single most effective strategy we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It'll make it easier and safer for people to walk instead of drive. And while this project is a significant upfront investment, it is far less costly than many other sustainability measures and yields benefits for generations. I would appreciate your support in moving this project forward over the finish line. Let's not let another decade or another generation go by or a preventable injury occur. Thank you for your time and your commitment for a safer, more connected Durango.
And the next individual signed up to speak for 12.2 is Joe Hanrahan.
Hello, Council. My name is Joe Hanrahan. I am a resident of Durango and a downtown business owner at Durango Cyclery. I would like to reiterate what Claire and Eric said here. Eric's actually a customer of the shop, and you know, I've heard from multiple customers multiple times just about the dangers, you know, they encounter as they try and ride their bikes around this town. The 12th Street underpass is a vital connection between the Surface Street bike routes on the west side and downtown. The other primary places for west side riders and commuters to cross are at 9th Street, 22nd Street, and 27th Street. Crossing at 27th Street involves an action-packed traverse across the rec center parking lot. Always a little sporty. Those northwest connections, obviously including 32nd Street, funnel into the 15th Street crossing on 2nd Ave, which presents its own set of challenges that I encounter every day after coming down Florida. It's also the 12th Street underpass would also be a vital connection into Buckley Park and the new City Hall. With there's always so many events in Buckley Park in the summertime, and offering people a car-free way to get down there with a safe crossing of Camino, I think would be extremely important. I would say, just like big picture wise, we love to talk about the strength of our community in Durango. I saw some of the graphics from the earlier presentations that had the little mountains with the 5 pieces in there. And safety was one of those little sections, and community and connection was the other. Our sense of community is based on connections. A sense of community is also challenged by isolation. In our modern life here, we are constantly challenged by the isolation offered in our screens and our cars. And anyone who walks or rides around Durango can tell you how frequently they see friends and neighbors while moving around town. We wave, we say hello, we may even stop for a chat. That's an organic connection and community building that doesn't happen when we're driving our cars around. So I would just emphasize, let's continue to put resources and this budget item towards building a truly strong connected community that offers safe and efficient options for traveling, for other modes of travel besides cars. Thanks for listening.
And the next individual signed up to speak for 12.2 is Alan Millar.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Alan Millar and I'm a citizen. Actually, to correct that, I'm a resident of Durango. I guess I'm also a citizen of Durango. Anyway, I'm also the coordinator for a Strong Towns conversational group that meets on the first Wednesday of the month. I'd like to begin by inviting any of you to join us. Strong Towns looks at what is the next incremental step that we can take to make our city a better place. And right now our group is focused on bike and pedestrian infrastructure and safety. Had a different pitch plan for you tonight. Some of you already heard it. So today I'm just going to talk about the Camino crossing. I'd like to start by noting the Financial Accountability Board has signed off on this project. They all voted for a budget that includes approximately $300K in 2026 to move forward. So I'd like to encourage you and note that if you're voting against the wishes of the city, that if you were to vote to take it off, you'd be voting against the wishes of the only citizen advisory board that we currently have in place. Cost estimates in April 2020, the city website says the conceptual cost for a crossing was about $3 million. Now those numbers are being thrown around like 15 to 20 million. I just would suggest that the reality is we don't really know what the Camino underpass will cost until further design work is done. And I encourage you or urge you to vote for the continuation of funding for the design so we can make an informed decision. So over the next several years, the city's planning to spend millions of dollars to move its operations to 9R buildings. I am aware that these dollars come from a different bucket, but I'm generally supportive of the idea. But I want to point out that it creates a perception problem for the community when we're building a beautiful new municipal core building and we can't protect pedestrians darting across Camino every day in fear for their lives. I won't go into how terrible the crossing is. There's talk of building underground parking for city vehicles in the new building, and I would be willing to bet that it will cost a lot more to do that than a pedestrian culvert under the highway. It's not a good look when we're willing to shelter vehicles but not cyclists and pedestrians. Finally, I would offer that there will be real economic benefits to Camino crossing. Whatever millions we spend on the 9R buildings will not result in more economic activity and tax revenue, but slow-moving pedestrians spend more money and keep local businesses alive and paying taxes. I urge you to continue to invest in a slower, safer, and more prosperous Durango. Thank you all.
And the next individual signed up for 12.2 is Amy Haggart.
I'm a resident of Durango, 18 years. I raised my children here, and I also work for Durango Devo. I've been part of Durango Devo for about 17 years. I'm here more or less structured. Thank you for all the organized advocates. I'm really more here for the heart of, I've worked with the Powerhouse, with the schools, and with Devo. I've worked with thousands and thousands of kids. And my biggest worry every day is them getting from their home to their practices, to their schools or whatever. We teach these kids how to be independent and have these healthy lives, to get outside and enjoy our beautiful town. And I'm a little emotional from the earlier thing of children, taking care of our children in this town. But we work very hard in our community to raise really healthy children. And then we don't do one of the simplest things is just like my kids they could go out in the mountains and I wouldn't worry about them, but I worried about them crossing that road. They don't live here now, but I think about all the thousands of children in Devo and our schools that have to figure out how they're going to safely get across that road. I've saved 2 people. Literally, I feel like I've saved their lives. One for sure, who I was at that crossing with, and the light turned. They just started going, and they didn't. They just trust this light, and all of a sudden there's a car just flying and speeding, and I had to yell, and he didn't hear me because I think he had earbuds in, and I literally ran out and grabbed him and pulled him in, and this car just flew by at probably 50 miles an hour. And another time a similar thing, but they heard me yell and tell them to stop. It happens every day. I cross that road a lot. So I really urge you to not take this off as a very important priority for this town, as a healthy town. We also have a lot of big things happening that are going to bring a lot more pedestrians to our town, like Worlds, 2030 Worlds. It just needs to happen, and keep our kids safe and our community just a healthy community in many ways, business-wise and public. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
And the next agenda item that an individual wants to speak on is 12.3, which is an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 25, Utilities, Article 2, Water, Section 25 through 30, Charges, and Article 3, Sewers and Sewer Disposal, Section 25-114, Service Rates, Surcharge, and that'd be John Simpson online.
Mayor Yazzie, I'm still a city resident. Actually, for the last 45 years, I've been a city resident on and off. My comments are regarding the water and sewer rate ordinance item 12.3. I support structurally adjusting the utility rates to ensure long-term stability and fairness. But I must start by challenging the magnitude of the proposed 10% water rate hike. For the water fund, the auditor in the 2024 year shows substantial net position of nearly $15 million, while staff correctly highlights genuine increases in costs. Proposing a random 10% increase when we have such a strong liquid fund balance is premature and places an unnecessary burden on local families and businesses. I fully support necessary projects like the College Mesa water treatment plant and the 9-mile pipeline construction. However, these are future efforts that are still in the early planning stages. Major multi-million-dollar projects must be planned correctly, and if debt is needed, a new voter-approved debt should be sought before generating significant new revenue. Therefore, I urge the council to approve a modest 3% increase for the water in 2026. While staff correctly highlights genuine increases, proposing a random 10% increase while we have such a strong fund balance is premature and hurts the families and the businesses in Durango. Now, regarding the sewer rates, the situation is much different due to the massive $40 million debt on the wastewater treatment facility that the voters approved. I fully support applying the entire 20% revenue increase by increasing the fixed monthly sewer base, but leaving the volumetric charge steady. You understand the difference between the fixed monthly base sewer and the volumetric charge. The base fee must cover the fixed costs, particularly this huge debt. By increasing the fixed base rate, we ensure equity. Every property owner, including high-value, part-time residents who use less water in the winter because they can afford to go to Arizona, contribute fairly to the fixed capacity and the reliability of the sewer system. This also significantly helps the businesses of Durango, who pay very high sewer rates. Please note, my suggestion will probably increase my family's bill, but it's the right and the fair thing to do to increase the base fee. In summary, I urge you to approve the 3% water rate increase and approve a total sewer revenue increase, but only apply it to the base rate and leave the usage rate, which you've seen is one of the highest in the state level. Thank you, Mayor Yazzie.
And the next agenda item to be spoken on is 12.5, which is an ordinance for text amendments to Chapter 27 of the City of Durango Code of Ordinances regarding non-functional turf, landscaping, and related definitions. And that individual is Erix Landamanis, who appears to be online.
Erix, you can unmute yourself and speak.
And I could go back to Julie Cooley, who was trying to speak on 11.4. Julie Cooley indicated that they were online.
I texted with Julie and we're having some tech troubles getting her in. So she will make sure she's ready for the next one and do apologize for that.
Thank you. And Erix wasn't able to.
Erix, would you like to try to unmute now? If need be, you can try using your keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-M to try to unmute
All right,
yourself.
All right, there was I needed to do that. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, great. So my name is Erix Landamanis, and I'm the Government Affairs Associate at 76 Group, which represents the Synthetic Turf Council. STC is made up of synthetic turf manufacturers, component manufacturers, and suppliers, builders and installers of both sports field and landscaping, testing labs, and other individuals and companies. We'd like to address some concerns and some misconceptions in tonight's ordinance. There is no scientific evidence that turf causes heat more than, say, a parking lot. The synthetic turf of the past is different than the turf of today. Today's turf technologies use different methods to combat the heat effects of the past. Some of that technology includes infill systems that use organic infills like coconut shells and or even wood fill, like what is used on the University of Colorado football field. Other technologies include heat block, reflective, and other technologies to address this concern as well. Second, the fear of harmful chemical microplastics and PFAS is continually addressed by Synthetic Turf Council and its members. STC members are committed to maintaining the highest quality standards for synthetic turf systems. Our member manufacturers proactively engage with their component and raw material suppliers to ensure that their products contain no PFAS-based ingredients, including polymeric PFAS processing aids. Additionally, our members self-audit through voluntary testing processes that rely on EPA-approved methods for individual PFAS analytes and or a total organic fluorine test to verify the absence of intentionally added PFAS. These tests are widely used and provide verifiable, consistent data across different projects and regions. While PFAS are unfortunately present in our environment, STC members are committed to doing our part to ensure the absence of intentionally added PFAS in our products. Synthetic turf dramatically reduces water use and protects water quality compared to high maintenance grass systems, which are critical benefits in water scarce Colorado. The EPA estimates that outdoor irrigation accounts for nearly 9 billion gallons of daily household water use nationwide, representing 30% of total consumption and up to 70% in hot, dry climates like ourselves. A single full-size synthetic sports field can save millions of gallons of water annually, depending on the local conditions and usage. At the same time, because synthetic turf requires no fertilizers, pesticides, or herbicides, which which eliminates chemical runoff that pollutes nearby streams, lakes, and groundwater. In short, synthetic turf delivers both massive water conservation and cleaner watersheds. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me. That was all the public comment for items on the agenda tonight. And so I can move forward with the consent agenda. Thank you, Mayor. So on the consent agenda, we have 8.1.1 approval of minutes from the October 30th, 2025 City Council regular meeting. Under 8.2, final reading of ordinances, we have quite a few, but we have 8.2.1, which is an ordinance for the provision of minimum standards to safeguard life, health, property, and public welfare by the regulation and control of the design, construction, quality of materials, use and occupancy, location, and maintenance of all buildings and structures within the city of Durango, and certain equipment specifically regulated herein, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Building Code. 8.2.2 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and control of the design, construction, quality of materials, erection, installation, alteration, repair, location, relocation, replacement, addition to, use, or maintenance of 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhomes within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Residential Code for 1 and 2 family dwellings. 8.2.3 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and control of the design, construction, installation, quality of materials, location, operation, and maintenance of heating, ventilation, cooling, and refrigeration systems, incinerators, and other miscellaneous heat-producing appliances within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Mechanical Code. 8.2.4 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and control of the erection, installation, alteration, addition, repair, relocation, replacement, maintenance, or use of any plumbing system within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Plumbing Code. 8.5 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and governing of fuel gas systems and gas-fired appliances within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Fuel Gas Code. 8.2.6 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and governing of the repair, alteration, change of occupancy, addition, and relocation of existing buildings, including historic buildings within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Existing Building Code. 8.2.7 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and governing of the safeguarding of persons and property from hazards arising from the use of electricity within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2023 edition of the National Electrical Code. 8.2.8 is an ordinance providing for the establishment of minimum prescriptive and performance-related regulations for the design of energy-efficient buildings and structures within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Energy Conservation Code, including the Colorado Model Electric Ready and Solar Ready Code. 8.2.9 is an ordinance providing for the regulation and governing of the safeguarding of life and property from fire and explosion hazards arising from the storage, handling, and use of hazardous substances, materials, and devices, and from conditions hazardous to life or property in the occupancy of buildings and premises within the city of Durango, adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the International Fire Code. And then 8.2.10 is an ordinance to establish minimum regulations for the safeguarding of life and for property protection intended to mitigate risk to life and structures from intrusion of fire, from wildland fire exposures and fire exposures from adjacent structures, and to mitigate structure fires from spreading to wildland fuels within the city of Durango by adopting the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. And there's no adoption of resolutions by consent, no approval of other administrative items, no request for public hearings, no introduction of ordinances, and no request for excused absences. Yeah, thank you.
All right, does anybody want to pull any? Okay. Discussions, vote. Did we get roll call?
Oh, make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Oh, discussion?
I got it. You're done with it. Counselor Gonzalez. Counselor Koso.
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie.
Yes.
Counselor Lawyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
Thank you. There are no public hearings scheduled. And so on to section 11 for resolutions, we have 11.1, which is a resolution for water justice on the Animas River Trail.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this item was requested by Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff, was approved to be on the council agenda. And I do believe we have some students here that are wanting to present on this item.
Good evening, Council. Tonight we are here to showcase a collaborative effort from our water justice class that aims to advocate for the community, culture, and connection behind the Animas River. Our team has students who are diverse from all over the Four Corners region and the larger watershed. We have come together for this movement by speaking here at City Council tonight and community outreach and at on-campus events. Tonight, we are here for the Animas River.
So this year marks the 10th anniversary of the 2015 Gold King mine spill, where 3 million gallons of wastewater were released into the Animas River. This event sparked a great deal of conversation around the protection and health of our river. And we wanted to use the anniversary as an opportunity to re-engage with the community on this topic and to widen the conversation beyond pollution alone. In our classroom, we study issues of water justice, but our project extends beyond academic concepts alone. To understand how these issues are discussed and addressed in the larger community, we attended and drew from a number of water-based events during the Four Corners Water Center's Water Week. And we attended a debate held by the Colorado Conservation Water Board and have attended multiple city council meetings.
Also, as part of our efforts, we wanted to survey the community to make sure we're representing as diverse a set of voices as we could reach. So we put together a series of questions to seek the opinions of the public of Durango and managed to get 70 responses from community members. On this slide, you can see some of the demographics represented. The response from the community was overwhelmingly positive. There was at least 98% agreement on statements in support of advocacy for the Animas River, which became foundational for our resolution. As part of our survey, we gave the opportunity to comment on anything that felt relevant and important. I'll let you have a moment to read through, but I mostly want to highlight the deep personal connections represented, as well as the sense of duty to protect this water body that is so vital and nourishing to the Durango community.
I would like to recognize that seeing the river as an entity and personhood is not a new idea. This has been taken on by multiple Indigenous communities that have this Indigenous epistemology within having the river have its own personhood. Looking at the Nez Perce and the Yakima tribes, they give this sort of relation and the reciprocity and the important consideration with working the local and community members and working within this resolution and honoring it and not disrespecting it. Here are also some other examples that we looked in our case study that also are in locally other towns for Ridgeway, Colorado and Grand Lake, Colorado. I like to highlight too with the tribal nations and water rights. this has been taken on legally and then been put in legislation documentation for like hundreds of years. And even till now, we look at how other communities are using the resolution and using their own way of what water is, and water is its own identity, and how it could be a free-flowing entity.
Our resolution is asking for a formal recognition from the city of Durango regarding the river corridor that strengthens our community. Our community values the cultural and spiritual values of the animus and the inherent right to flow. The rights we propose include flowing free and flourishing, supporting essential functions like ecological integrity for plants and animals, free from pollution, and the importance of conservation and restoration work. We encourage the city of Durango to uphold the responsibilities of developing just programs and policies to support this recognition of rights, oppose or redirect actions that would violate this recognition of rights, and to create a partnership with the Four Corners Water Center at Fort Lewis College to publish a yearly report on the animus, the health, current events, and community engagement. The care is reflected in our survey, a sense of curiosity and eagerness from our community. We want to further community education for river advocacy. Together, we all have a personal connection to water in our community, in our life, and in our world.
Mane mechoni, agua es vida, to e ina, patu kwatsi, ne ahe, ne da ahe, ne be de wizawin, owa, hek jakadoke, dos. Water is life. Water is a relative. Water is a force. Water is a community. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. Thank you.
We have a resolution to approve that was in the packet, yeah? Yeah. I make a motion to approve the resolution as it is written in the city council packet.
I'll second.
Discussion is okay, Mary Yazzie?
Yes.
First off, I'd like to thank, Mrs. Clausen for coming to me. I guess it was probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, to see like what this process looked like, how we could potentially move forward with something so, I guess, progressive for our community. And yeah, I'm just really taken aback by the amount of initiative and engagement shown by the students. So yeah, just kudos to everybody for really putting in the effort and putting in the work behind the scenes to, just to give us the information so we can hopefully make a good decision on the dais tonight. But yeah, super impressed with everything y'all have done. And I think this is a good process for you all to go through as students to look at what does civic engagement look like and what are the low hanging fruit that we can have to really move the needle on things that are really important to us. So thanks for all the work, and yeah, look forward to seeing what you guys accomplish further down the road.
Just want to concur with Councilor Woodruff. Really appreciate the work that you've done in the presentation, enduring a long meeting to get that presentation out as well. I really appreciated you included an acknowledgement around our duty to protect our rivers so that our children have the same opportunity to enjoy a healthy river as we've had. I echo the feeling that I grew up in the Animas River half the time, certainly over the summer. So really appreciate the work that you're doing here. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo the sentiments of both my fellow counselors. And it's a hard thing come to city council and doing a presentation, but I'm really proud of you because I also attended Fort Lewis College and graduated from there. So I feel a very deep connection with you. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie, Councilor Gonzalez, Councilor Lawyer,
Yes.
and Councilor Koso.
Of course, yes.
And the next item on the agenda is 11.2, which is a resolution authorizing the city to request Colorado's 3rd congressional delegation to initiate an investigation into the actions of the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Or discussion, rather. I just wonder, Mark, if you have any update. Have you heard anything from our congressional delegation?
We did contact the congressional delegation today, and they have not initiated a formal investigation or Senate investigation or Senate hearing or anything yet. We did receive a timeline from Senator Hickenlooper's office about his interaction with the affected family and his efforts on behalf of them. But as the motion is written in the packet is how I'd recommend you pass it tonight, because you are formally requesting that a congressional investigation be started, and that hasn't happened yet.
Anyone else? Did we get a roll call?
Thank you. Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Councilor Koso,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez, and Councilor Lawyer.
Yes.
And the next item is 11.3, which is a resolution to adopt the La Plata County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Bob Brammer, Assistant City Manager. This is for your consideration this evening is a resolution to adopt the La Plata County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. This is really more of a formality than anything. This is a process that we go through every 5 years to look at both man-made and natural disasters. We plan for them to figure out what mitigation aspects we have and how we're going to respond to those different aspects of it. It's a plan that we've worked on with staff throughout the last year. We work in coordination with the Office of Emergency Management, along with the other jurisdictions to include the fire departments throughout the county. At this point, we're just asking you to consider the resolution to pass, which we will then present to the county. We will then submit their application to FEMA so that we can be eligible for disaster release funds in the future in case we do have any type of an issue that may come out in the future. So the recommendation would be to approve the La Plata County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan, if you will.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's an easy one.
Thank you. Councilor Koso,
Yes.
Councilor Lawyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie, and Councilor Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last item under resolutions is 11.4, which is a resolution authorizing funding to the Transportation Services Fund for temporary shuttle service to the emergency warming shelters submitted by Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff, Councilor Lawyer, and Councilor Koso.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this item was actually submitted by Councilor Koso, but did receive the required three agreements with Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff and Councilor Lawyer to be placed on the agenda immediately due to the timing restrictions as outlined in our council rules of operation. So I will handle it over to Councilor Koso for this item.
Yeah, Council, there's not a whole lot to say here. I think we all are familiar with the Warming Center shuttle, the Warming Center. The shuttle is just a vital piece, I believe, to both reassure the school district around their expressed concerns about the Warming Center and the folks that we work with there. More importantly, far more importantly, it's providing an important connection on brutally cold nights to keep our unhoused folks safe. So.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing funding to the Transportation Services Fund for temporary shuttle service to the Emergency Warming Center.
Second. Yeah, I just have a question. I see it says up to 12,500 will be allocated from the Transportation Services Enterprise Fund. Sarah, sorry, may I ask you a question real quick? Will this potentially impact other services or other things within the transportation department?
No, this will be totally separate. We have the capacity in the fleet, so no problem.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Can I follow up really quick on that question since we've got Sarah up there. If it turns out that we have an unusually cold winter, that there's more need here, it's relatively easy for us to come back, reallocate? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we averaged 25 nights that did below 15 to your estimate. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks.
The cost, if it's more, was that your, okay, and there's sufficient funding for that? Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Counselor Lawyer,
Oh, yes. Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez, Counselor Koso,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
and Mayor Yazzie.
Yes.
All right. Moving forward to Section 12, consideration of ordinances. 12.1 is an ordinance regarding consideration of the annual operating appropriation ordinance for the budget year 2026.
Mic a little closer. Short. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Gloria Platt, Chief Financial Officer, to present the first consideration of the ordinance for the 2026 operating and capital budgets. These are two separate ordinances, but this presentation covers both of these items. So this item is in the goal area of organizational stewardship, and the preparation of the annual operating and capital budgets are in line with our mission, vision, and value statements as we strive to provide outstanding services and experiences for the entire community. So many of these slides you have seen before in the various presentations, including this timeline here as we first presented the capital projects to the Financial Advisory Board, then worked through the all-day budget retreat together with council presenting the city manager's proposed budget in October. Then we had reconciliation on November 4th. And then at the last council meeting, we presented the proposed budget and held a public hearing to allow for public comment. Again, tonight is the first consideration of these ordinances and to be followed on December 2nd with a request for budget adoption and the mill levy certification. So again, key areas in the budget development included a commitment to enhance operations by strengthening existing services and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of our operations, and using the strategic goal as a roadmap to deliver exceptional services to our community. We also have a dedicated focus to complete ongoing projects and manage capital and operating costs responsibly, And by investing in our workforce, we are not only enhancing job satisfaction, but also improving service delivery for our residents. So some other areas to highlight is that the budget does serve as a plan for our upcoming year and provides a basis for communication with the community, provides accountability and a tool to measure performance of the city. This proposed budget is balanced with sufficient resources to pay for budget expenses and funds with any required reserves have been met. Again, the capital budgets were presented to FAB that were required to go before the Financial Advisory Board. These are in line with the 5-year capital improvement plans and presented with opportunities for public comments as well. So we have our strategic plan, and we did highlight in detail the goals for the 2026 budget by each goal specifically, and how these are really highlighted in our budget and how these really drive our budget. So at the public hearing, we did have one public comment, and this was in support of the Camino Crossing project. Again, we had other comments tonight, which we heard. And that was the only public comment we had at the actual public hearing. So this slide is the fund summary. Again, you have seen this previously, but this again covers two ordinances. So it covers the operating fund ordinance budget as well as the capital fund budget. So we're showing the summary here for the all operating funds and including revenues, expenses, and expected fund balance. And then we will show a suggested motion for the ordinance for the operating budget. This will be followed by the same for the capital budget. So the operating funds presented in the 2026 budget include revenues in total of $133,251,455 and expenses in the amount of $134,564,934. So the ordinance will set the max expenditure amount for the 2026 budget by fund. This is the recommended motion for consideration of the 2026 operating budget. And following this would be the same items for the capital budget. So I think this would be an appropriate place for any questions or comments on the operating funds ordinance item.
First, we need the motion, right? Yeah. Move to approve the ordinance appropriating sums of expenditures shown on Exhibit A from the estimated revenues and reserves on hand of each operating fund for the 2026 operating budget for the city of Durango with the following amendment. I'd like to eliminate the parking garage feasibility study for $50,000 as the amendment. That's it.
Second.
Council, the elimination of the parking garage feasibility study, I think, makes a lot of sense. We do not have a real burning need for this building. And I believe that there is staff time and resources that are going to be put towards a feasibility study that would become outdated by the time we might generate the revenues for this building, construction of this building. The 100 spaces that are already approved and budgeted at the new city hall, as well as better wayfinding and parking programs for the transit center around underutilized areas will help parking without this multi-million-dollar eventual expense of building a building.
Oh, I didn't, yep.
So thank you. So just regarding the feasibility study for the parking, it was 50K. That was a request. And has there been funding allocated for this previously? Is this the first time we've seen this, or is there additional?
There is behind.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hi, Sarah.
This is the first allocation request. Yeah, for 50,000.
This is the first time we've done this exercise of the parking garage?
I believe there was a feasibility study in 2009, but this is, yes, this would be the first request for funding in this decade.
For a feasibility study, are we talking about a structure, or are you just talking about parking that could include some of the things that Councilor Coso mentioned?
So when last September, when council approved a resolution to direct staff to get a cost estimate and final design for downtown's next step, there was also interest in seeing what the cost of a parking structure would be, because there was a lot of community concern that downtown's next step was going to take a lot of parking. And that's how we landed there.
Okay, but so we're talking about a structure, not
it's
technology.
Study. It would be a feasibility study of potential locations, operating costs, just what the need would be. There would be several different considerations included in the study, but it would be a document that we would get at the end of
Well, right, but I guess it could, in that funding, could I know that I'm sure you're familiar with new technologies for parking that you can, there's an app, you know, it tells you what's available. Is that something that
This
that
request
funding-
is just specific to a feasibility study.
for a garage?
For a, yes, for a structure.
A structure?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I can maybe help a little bit too with that, just because I've been on council a long time and I know a lot of the history there. So when the transit center was originally built, it was built for a parking garage to be included in it, like the what's that called? Elevator? That's what it's called. It goes up to another story that could access a parking garage. Like, it was kind of built with the intention that it could become a parking garage. When I made the motion last year to finish design of the next steps, I'm going to be super honest and like tell everyone why I did what I did. There was a ton of pushback on next steps because of parking. Like, you think we got a lot of Camino underpass emails this last couple of days? Like, the amount of issues with parking last year was insane. Triple, quadruple what we just got for. So I don't believe we personally need a parking garage, if I'm being honest and clear, in Durango. I park at the transit center every day during the summer. I did a little diary that I sent to Jose and Dave about all the parking spots I could find in the summer next to where I work. I don't believe we need it, but I also want to listen to my constituents and say that I'm being open and looking for the right solutions if it does come to the conclusion, if we do next steps, that there is a parking problem. We now have where it should be and when it is. We did do a parking study that did 2 years ago.
2023.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, we did a parking study that kind of had a lot of those things that you're talking about, like the apps and like where we could do, what we could implement, wayfinding signage and a bunch of different things for neighborhood parking. Oh no, neighborhood parking programs that we could implement. Don't say that's a bad word. Anyways, we did a parking study. And so it was just one of those things like, okay, I want us to have a full picture as a council to approve things. So I want next steps to be designed, and I want a parking study or a garage to be, how much is it going to cost? Does it make sense? So council can make good decisions on, yes, I want to go through with this. No, I don't. We can keep this on the back burner till we say we need it. Like, I believe design is good and feasibility studies are good. So we are ready to go when it's ready to go.
And if I may, so last September, council was just interested in having the full picture of what all of the impacted costs would be when we do have to go under and make utility improvements. So this was kind of one of the items that the community was requested based on the amount of parking that was going to be lost. We do have a clearer picture of that now. We're going to likely be losing 29 parking spaces with the final design. And currently, when the bump outs are out there, we have lost 30 spaces. So we'll actually have a net gain of 1 parking space. And as Councilor Lawyer did, she did say we have a parking management plan that took data of all of our parking supply, occupancy and vacancy. And the plan did not recommend that we pursue a parking garage at this time based on what we do have available, but it is an option for us to get that feasibility.
And I think in 2009, we said it was like $10 million for a parking garage, but it was a 2-story, and we were looking at maybe a 1-story option for the feasibility study and different things. Anyways, that's just a little like why I did what I did. And yeah, here we are. You got time for a drink?
All right, so, since we've evolved since Jessica made her motion to do a parking study, and then we went through the whole steps, downtown next steps, revisioning the parking and the bump outs and all the utility of parking down there. And since we're going to go ahead and do the PD City Hall with underground parking in the future, which is just a couple years off, I don't think we need to have this feasibility study. And that's my, my input. So thank you.
Just to clarify, you do not think we need the study? So I'm kind of in the same boat as Councilor Lawyer in that I think there's a parking perception issue, and that we don't necessarily need a parking garage. Yeah, I think we should fill up the parking lot that we have before we start making any plans to go up. But I also see the validation of your point of listening to constituents, especially the ones that are really anti next steps, and how do we kind of meet in the middle and look at all options and put all options on the table. So I'm conflicted. I don't think we necessarily need it, but do we need to spend the $50,000 on it? But do we also need to listen to the folks that that are against downtown's next steps to see, you know, to make sure that, I don't know. I'm, like I said, I'm waffling.
Sarah, I got a follow-up question for you. So the feasibility studies, how long do they hold true for? And I'm sure that's not universal across all feasibility studies, but if there's nothing on the horizon for 2 or 3 years, is it likely that we would end up doing this feasibility study again?
Well, what we would be requesting is a cost estimate. So that will be a point in time, and then inflation will increase very rapidly. So that cost will be good.
Yeah, my fear is that the shelf life of a feasibility study, you need to be thinking that you're going to move forward with whatever it's going to find without many more years in between.
One more point. Okay, just from my short time on city council and my experience with trying to put the brakes on downtown next steps, this is just the start of spending a lot of money. Because we'll do this and then there'll be an amendment. Oh, we didn't get it all done. We'll do it again. Oh, then we need a design at 30%, 60%, 90%, you know, it just goes on and on. So I think it's a good idea to stop right now. Thank you.
The feasibility study. So used to be, I don't know, 2016 numbers, the cost per parking space in a covered structure was about $20,000 per space.
Our parking management plan that was completed in 2023 estimated between 20 and 50,000, depending on whether we go up or down.
Okay. But this is not necessarily determining cost. It's also like potential locations, because I think we know it's roughly $20,000 a spot. And I don't know how many but that would be like what we determine we need.
Yeah.
Would be determined in the study as well, potentially.
It would be location, market demand based on our current occupancy, and a few things had changed in the landscape since our parking management plan was completed, like the city hall, relocation, downtown's next step, the number of parking spaces impacted got more clarified. So we would be including that. What I have, kind of full disclosure, been seeing in feasibility studies for parking garages is a section on adaptive reuse of the parking structure if it doesn't succeed or isn't used or full. So
yeah, I've seen that as well, because it actually turns out that in fact cities don't need them as much as they thought they did, and they're expensive and they're not very attractive, and ultimately they don't really produce the income that one thinks they will produce, because they're usually not free. Right. But anyway, I do think, just for the sake of, I mean, 50,000 is a very small percentage of what the actual cost of the item will be, should we decide to proceed. So I think getting all that information is really valuable. It helps to really get the demographics of the area, how many people are coming in that might be willing to pay. Although I don't know, we haven't really I know that's a lot more information down the road. So currently we're just, hopefully we'll gather all that information before we determine, right, how far we go. So, okay, thank you.
I think just one more thought. Sorry, since we're thinking and I don't know which way I'm going. I think it would be not interesting. I think it's important to get a full parking picture after with this new building, the City Hall PD, and then determining what the best avenue is from there. And I don't think $50,000 is a lot. I think it's fine. I think it would make a lot of our residents feel good, but I think that there's better ways to spend it right now on better signage, and increasing that parking program, the employee parking program. I mean, walk up and down 3rd Avenue and put like $20 parking at the transit center or whatever. You know what I mean? I think that there's better use of that money to see if we can move that parking around. But so yeah. Anyway.
Maybe just a quick
thought.
clarification question, Mayor. Do you think that this is something that we could get grant funding for
I'm not aware of anything parking related for this study unless there's some type of like a transit connection, but it would be a little bit of a stretch, I think.
Yeah, so just be 50,000 out of the budget. Okay, thank you.
Seeing no hands, could we get a vote?
Thank you. Counselor Gonzalez.
Motion on the floor includes the passing of the annual operating budget less the parking garage line item of 50,000.
So all we're voting to approve, all we're doing at this moment is one amendment.
You'd be approving the entire operational budget less that $50,000 expense for the parking garage.
Okay, so I think I want to say yes. Support the budget minus, I just want to make sure I'm voting correctly since I'm the first one to go. And so we're only requesting one exception, which is a parking garage. Everything else gets approved by voting yes. Okay, yes.
Mayor Yazzie. Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
Counselor Lawyer.
Yes.
And Counselor Kosa.
Yes. Thank you.
And the next item is 12.2, an ordinance regarding consideration of the annual capital appropriation ordinance for the budget year 2026.
And here we have the capital fund summaries and the capital, the proposed budget for the capital is $21,971,460 in revenues, expenses in the amount of $28,217,843. And then the capital portion of the combined funds shown are already included in the ordinance totals. And these include the airport fund with capital expenses of $5,456,641, trash and recycle fund, $381,029, and water fund, $4,934,274. Again, the capital budget ordinance will set the maximum expenditure amount for the 2026 budget year by fund. And this is the recommended motion for consideration of the 2026 capital budget.
I'd like to move to approve the ordinance appropriating sums of expenditure shown on Exhibit A from the estimated revenues and reserves on hand of each capital fund for the 2026 capital budget for the city of Durango with one following amendment. I'd like to eliminate the funding for the ice rink study and incorporate it, the ice rink, into the Parks and Rec Master Plan review for 2026.
The motion fails because there's no second.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance appropriating sums of expenditures shown on Exhibit A from the estimated revenues and reserves on hand of each capital fund for the 2026 capital budget for the city of Durango.
Second.
Mayor, I just wanted to take a second. The Camino and 12th Street underpass has been a big topic for me lately. I wanted to share that I had a really good series of conversations in the last few days around the Camino and 12th Street underpass. Usually we see diametrically opposed viewpoints in many of our conversations. That was not the case here. Good balanced discussion, both sides, multiple individuals from key organizations took their time to talk with me, which I really appreciated. So I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledged that those conversations were very meaningful. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Lawyer,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Koso,
Yes.
and Counselor Gonzalez. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is 12
Can I
point.
thank her real quick? I'm so sorry. I should thank you so much for the presentation. And I want to say, I don't know if I'm getting smarter with my time on council or it just keeps getting better, but it's literally every year it is, I feel like, getting better and better. And that was our first 5-0 budget approval since I've been on council. And so congratulations to council for passing first go at the budget. So thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Sonia. Sorry, Ben.
Thank the team too, Gloria.
Apology. Yeah, and the whole
Yeah.
team. Thank you.
And so 12.3 is an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 25, Utilities, Article 2, Water, Section 25 through 30, Charges, and Article 3, Sewers and Sewer Disposal, Section 25, Service Rates, Surcharge.
Welcome back, by the way.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Bob Lowry, the Interim Public Works Director. Tonight, we're going to talk about water and sewer rates. The presentation supports the goal areas of organizational stewardship, reliable infrastructure. You can see on the slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the background, the costs of infrastructure and operating the system, comparison of rates with neighboring cities, and a recommendation for the council to consider. As you know, water and sewer funds are both enterprise funds that are self-supporting entities that operate and maintain water and sewer collection, storage, treatment, transmission, and distribution. These are essential services for any city, and they have to operate like a business because by law, they are limited to transfers from other sources of funds, basically funded by the ratepayers. Over the last 5 years, everything has gotten more expensive. Actually, it's been more than 5 years. It seems forever. You can see on this slide, most services that we rely on, trash, sewer, water, cell phones, TV, have gone up somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5%. In the city of Durango, our wastewater fees gone up an average of 2% over the last 5 years, and our water rates have actually gone down an average of 2% over the last 5 years. We've had 2 rate studies in the last 11 years. In 2014, the rate study recommended a 2% annual increase for water and sewer rates, and these were implemented through 2019. In 2019, a rate study was conducted which recommended 3% annual increases for both water and sewer, but these were not implemented in 2020. Had these rate increases been implemented, the increase from 2020 to 26 would have been about 21%. At the recommendation of the Infrastructure Advisory Board, city implemented a rate reduction in 2022 in water rates of approximately 25% and a 10% increase in sewer rates to fund the wastewater plant. It should be pointed out that the 10% rate increase did not even increase the revenue sufficient to cover the debt that was issued for that plant. Previously, the city has been able to maintain rates from the last analysis and minimize rates adjustments through gradual drawdowns in the fund balance to the point now where the funds are very close to having not much money in them. Expenses, as I mentioned, continue to grow up. Personnel costs have been the least of our increases, averaging 3 to 4% annually. This is due to the 3% COLAs provided staff, not due to an increase in personnel. Chemicals, contracted services, repair parts have all going up disproportionately. That's because of our aging infrastructure, and city crews are spending virtually all of their time doing breakdown maintenance rather than preventive maintenance to extend the life of the system. The American Water Works Association, the American Public Works Association best practices and to recommend that rates be reviewed annually and adjusted no less than every 2 years. The reason for having frequent adjustments is to have smaller rate adjustments more frequently than large adjustments less frequently. As I mentioned earlier, there has been only one rate adjustment since 2019. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends reserves equal to 60 to 90 days of operating and maintenance expenses. Currently, we do not have a reserve policy for either the water and or sewer fund. If we were to follow the GFOA guidelines, we would need a reserve fund 1.2 to 1.75 million in the water fund, 1.5 million to 2.3 million in the wastewater fund. If we had to replace all our water and sewer infrastructure today, it would cost in excess of $800 million. That's a big number, but it's a very real number, and that's in today's dollars. We have infrastructure components in the ground today that are more than 125 years old. They are at extreme risk of failure. If we were to assume a 50-year average life on the infrastructure, meaning replacing 2% a year, that would result in an expenditure of about $16 million in renewal and replacement of the existing infrastructure. That's not a realistic number, but we need to do something. That's in addition to the annual operating costs of about $14 million between the water and sewer. So big fund balances are not a bad thing when you're looking at tens of millions of dollars of deferred maintenance on the system. Here you see a comparison of rates among our neighboring cities. Durango's base rate of $23.46. That's actually inflated because the other cities include 3,000 to 6,000 gallons of water in their base rate. Our actual base rate is only 1623, but I added 3,000 gallons to the number to show 2346, less than half of the base rate of our neighboring cities. You can see also our volumetric rate of $2.41 for residential customers, which is about 88% of the customers, is significantly less than the volumetric rates in other cities. Folks in Durango are getting a good deal on their water rates. Similarly, the comparison of sewer rates, our base rate is $23.71, less than half of the average of the surrounding municipalities. Our volumetric rate, though, is slightly higher. This chart shows possible rate increase scenarios. A 10% water rate increase would result in a average monthly rate increase of $2.80 for residents and $16.70 for commercial customers. A 20% sewer rate increase would average about $9.18 for residential customers and $78.14 for commercial customers. The combined average monthly increase for water and sewer would be almost $12 for residential customers and almost $95 for commercial customers. The 2026 recommendation is to increase water rates by 10% and sewer rates by 20% based upon increasing costs of service comparison of area rates. We are currently developing a water and wastewater master plan. The contract has been awarded. It is being executed. We expect to have the final results in mid-2027, which will include a rate study for both water and wastewater. And at that time, it is likely that future adjustments will be recommended. We need a long-term rate plan to ensure the financial health of the utility, and we recommend reviewing rates annually and adjusting as needed. Quickly, fund summary. These charts do include the recommended rate increase. As you can see from the water fund, by 2029, with no additional rate increases, will be in the red. Similarly, before I get to that, we have several major upcoming projects that are critical for the city. The 9 Mile Pipeline construction, that project is under design. The design is expected to be completed by the end of 2027. And if funding is available, would start construction in 2028. We have a 3 million gallon water storage tank that needs to be built adjacent to the existing tank at the water treatment plant. That tank was constructed in 1962. It needs extensive maintenance, but we can't take it offline until the new 3 million gallon water storage tank is constructed. That is nearing 100% design, and we hope to start construction of the 3 million gallon tank in 2027. The plans have to go through extensive reviews by CDPHE, and we don't know how long that's going to take. We also have a major water line replacement along Highway 160 that serves Twin Buttes. We have negotiated a contract for that project and design has begun. We do have a development agreement with Twin Buttes, and per the development agreement, they will pay for a pro rata share of that pipeline, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 60%. We won't know that until the design is complete. And finally, I've plugged in $2 million a year for water line renewal, which is not as much as we need, but it's probably all we can afford right now. Similarly, in the sewer fund, and this also includes a 20% rate increase. For some reason, we can't see the bottom line on this slide. Evan, can you zoom in a little bit on that? The bottom is cut off. There we go. Keep going. There we go. You can see in 2029 and 2030, the sewer fund will also be in the red without any additional adjustments. The good news is we don't have the magnitude of new projects in the sewer fund because we do have a new plant, but we do have a need for renewals in the tens of millions of dollars of backlog currently. There we go. I'll stand for questions. That concludes my presentation. The recommended ordinance would be, or recommended action by the council would be to improve the ordinance, increasing water rates by 10% and sewer rates by 20% effective January 1st of 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Bob, thanks so much. I really appreciate this. And you know, Public Works is on my mind all the time right now. So there's an element of the costs that it's going to take for us to upgrade what we've got in the ground and Main Avenue and those things. Many projects that are not even contemplated in the presentation that you just shared. And so the increase in the water rates and the sewer rates, I think it gets us part of the way. Is it fair to say that it gets us part of the way to improving the infrastructure, but we still, like, we need probably a major increase in funding to be able to play some catch up here. Is that fair to say?
It's probably going to be necessary to issue debt to build the new 9 Mile pipeline. $35 million is something that couldn't. To be very realistic, you're probably going to be seeing rate increases forever. As long as costs continue to go up and infrastructure ages, there's just no way to sustain the system. And many parts of the system are at a critical stage. I'll be very honest with you. 125-year-old water lines have been a great bargain for the city, but we're on borrowed time.
And how do we get our hands around the costs? Will the next steps evaluation of the utilities underneath Main Avenue, will that give us the costs that are going to be for replacing those utilities?
The design is at almost the 90% stage. We should have the 100% plans, I believe in January, February, which should give us the cost. We're anticipating the utilities alone will be about $1 million a block for water and sewer.
Okay.
14 blocks, you can do the math. It's going to be an expensive project.
None of which is part of this presentation or any of the conversation
None
we've
of
been
which is
having.
included in this
Yeah.
Presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you for that depressing.
I do have some good news. This is my last council meeting.
Oh, I thought you were going to say,
Bob.
And I'd like to thank you all for your support of the department and me personally. This is a 3-month journey that turned into about 15 months. I've loved every minute of it, but Mama wants me to come home for Christmas.
Very appreciated. Thank you, Bob.
I want to say, Bob, thank you again. For some of you who don't know, this was actually his second stint to come back to help us. You are part of the team. Whether you go to Colorado Springs, you know that there will be phone calls coming your way and ways to try to bring you back in, at least to get advice and figure out some creative ways to go through in public works. So thank you for your leadership and thank you for everything you've done for the city of Durango. It's much appreciated.
It's been my privilege and my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna just make some comments. We rely on various boards and commissions to provide expertise in areas that frankly we on council are not experts on. We really try to appoint members of the community that provide context and experience to help guide council making the best data-based decision possible. That being said, the water and sewer rate discussion we have before us today is one that could be coming from a different lens had we adhered to a rate increase schedule. Specifically, you can look at a special meeting had by the Infrastructure Advisory Board on November 8th, 2021, where there's a recommendation made to increase water and sewer rates with slides and discussion around what would happen with our operations budget, bond payment ability, and anticipation of future capital projects. At the time, staff made the comment to, quote, raise rates and do this bite by bite instead of getting 1 or 2 years into the future and having to take a larger bite to meet those balance requirements, end quote. The city raised sewer rates by 11% in 2022, and that rate has remained the same since that point. Moreover, the water rate was reduced by approximately 25% in the same year, leaving us where we're at today. In a presentation in 2021, staff made a recommendation to the IAB to incrementally raise water rates each year starting in 2023 by 5% that first year, then shifting to 4% in subsequent years through 2026. Additionally, the recommendation to raise sewer rates were to start at 3% in 2023, then shifting to 2% in later years. Again, the premise was to take small bites to the fee structure so the city could stay on top of bond payments, operations, and future CIP projects. The IB board chair at the time made the comment that, quote, we are raising rates for the sake of raising rates without any real justification, end quote. In reality, the justification was clearly laid out by the staff at the time on what the repercussions would be if we didn't raise rates according to the schedule. At a February 17, 2023 IAB utility rate study meeting, it mentioned that, quote, costs were increasing at a faster rate than revenues by system growth alone, end quote. And there was a recommendation for incremental rate increases in 2023 and beyond. More alarming than not adhering to an incremental rate increase to prevent us from being in the situation that we're in now, the IAB board chair at the time was emailing directly with the city councilor at the time to influence them in voting against any rate increase. Not only was there a clear back and forth between the two, there was an attempt to cover it up by placing, quote, not subject to core requests, end quote, at the bottom of the emails. To me, it's a clear violation of ethical standards we as a council body set forth along with our various boards and commissions. This broach of trust makes me wonder if we're in this current position because of meddling of an individual into our water and sewer rates based upon misrepresented information. While I too am greatly concerned with general affordability in our town, we're in an impossible situation currently and have potential to default on our bond payment in the near future if nothing is done now. We know now that we have an aging system and unexpected repairs are certainly on the horizon, and we will need money to make not only those repairs, but also make a major repair to the same thing to prevent the same thing from happening again and again. My last point is that we have a huge water project in the way of the new Florida River pipeline that needs to be designed and funded, among other necessary water infrastructure projects we do not have the money for. As a reminder, we cannot use tax revenue to pay for water and sewer bond payments, operations, or capital improvement projects. The only revenue we can use to fund these entities is through the fee-based structure we currently have. Unfortunately, we're at a point of no return and need to raise our water and sewer rates, not only to stay ahead of basic bond payments and operations, but to anticipate future CIP projects.
Oh. See no, are you sure? Alrighty, see no hands. Could we get a vote?
Thank you. Counselor Gonzalez? Counselor Koso?
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie?
Yes.
Counselor Lawyer?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff.
Yes.
And the next item on the agenda is 12.4, which is an ordinance stating that the city of Durango opts out of revising Durango's Code of Ordinances regarding electric vehicle permitting processes as described in the Colorado House Bill 24-1173 prior to December 31st, 2025.
Right. Good evening, Mayor Council. Thank you for having me. This will probably be the least interesting and consequential item before you tonight. Save the best for last, I guess. So this, you may be asking why the Sustainability Office is recommending that we opt out of this model EV charging permitting. Really comes down to the nature of this legislation. So in 2024, the state legislature passed House Bill 24-1173, Electric Vehicle Charging Systems Permits Law. Essentially gives municipalities, local governments, counties and municipalities, three options for complying with the law. So one would be to adopt all required permitting processes and standards that that are laid out in the EV charging model land use code, which was developed by the Colorado Energy Office. Option two would be to adopt the permitting process standards directly laid out in the legislation itself. And then option three would be to adopt an ordinance or resolution stating that the local government does not wish to change its existing land use codes and opts out. So myself, along with community development staff, reviewed our options with regard to this legislation. And I realize this is a text-heavy slide here, but here are the conclusions we came to. So I'll start actually with option two. The requirements set forth directly in the legislation would be pretty challenging to integrate. They're a little convoluted. You know, they were written by legislators, not necessarily planners, and it would just be very difficult to integrate those into our land use code. Option one, the model EV code was developed with a lot of stakeholder engagement from the Colorado Energy Office. It actually is an excellent guidance document, but it's an all or nothing requirement for adoption. So there are about 12 to 15 items that we would have to adopt, and a majority of those would be pretty straightforward for Durango to adopt, but there were a handful that either would have been challenging to align with our land use code or didn't align with our for instance, our zone, there's one requirement about where EV fast charging would be required in what zones, and that didn't quite align with our zoning map and maybe is not what Durango wants in terms of the zones that we want to allow EV direct current fast charging in. And so that type of work and those subtle changes, we weren't able to do. Again, it was an all or nothing. So what we can do by opting out, and this is in the ordinance language before you, is over the course of the next year, engage the Community Development Commission, engage citizens to adopt a majority, if not all, of the model land use code, but do it in a way that follows our standard process for reviewing what is best for Durango and updating our land use code. So at this time, we are opting out. We're telling the state that we're opting out officially, but as again, in the ordinance language, we are setting our own self-imposed deadline to come back before you with a recommendation of these code updates by the end of 2026. And with that, questions, and here's the recommended motion.
Move that city council by motion move that we approve an ordinance stating the city of Durango opts out of revising Durango's code of ordinances regarding electric vehicle permitting processes as described in Colorado House Bill 24-1173 prior to December 31st, 2025.
Second. Thanks for the presentation and for staying around so late.
Easy. I know, so boring. All right. Thank you. Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Yazzie, Counselor Gonzalez, Counselor Lawyer,
Yes.
and Counselor Koso.
Yes.
All right, and then under item 12.5, we have an ordinance for text amendments to Chapter 27 of the City of Durango Code of Ordinances regarding non-functional turf, landscaping, and related definitions.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Leanne Bernstein. I'm with Community Development. This evening, I'm presenting proposed amendments to the Land Development Code regarding non-functional turf and some other landscaping amendments. First, relating this to our strategic plan, this does relate to organizational stewardship, and I specifically want to point out goal 1.3 under organizational stewardship, which is to advance a systematic approach towards environmental sustainability through focused efforts to conserve resources and mitigate environmental stressors by meeting or exceeding local, state, and national standards. So by a little bit of a background, the state of Colorado recently passed a couple bills, and with doing that, they had a myriad of findings, and I'll highlight a couple here. The first being that water supply in the western United States is under increasing pressure due to climate change and increasing demand. That many communities are overusing non-native grass for landscaping purposes, which require a lot of water. Next, that there are appropriate uses for turf grass and there are less appropriate uses for turf grass or non-functional turf, and that installing water-wise landscaping and prohibiting non-functional and artificial turf can reduce water demand. So the proposed amendments in front of you this evening are coming from the Colorado legislature passing two bills, Senate Bill 24-5, which was passed last year, and then House Bill 25-1113, which was passed this year. And because we were kind of in the landscaping section of the Land Development Code, there's just a couple other miscellaneous amendments that we're recommending as well. So Senate Bill 24-5, it defined non-functional turf and functional turf. So I'll give you just kind of a high level here. Functional turf, if you can think of areas that you want to be on the grass, you might play Frisbee with a friend, you might throw down a picnic blanket and sit and enjoy that space. That would qualify as functional turf. So it has civic, community, and recreational purposes, playground, sports field, picnic ground, amphitheater, golf course. These areas qualify as functional turf. So non-functional turf would be areas that do not qualify as these functional uses. There's some obvious ones, right? So non-functional turf located in a right-of-way between a sidewalk and a street is not something that you're not necessarily enjoying for the sake of being grass. Kind of these connector pieces, places in parking lots which have turf would all fall under non-functional turf. This bill also prohibits the installation of noxious and invasive species. It defined a list of applicable properties. So essentially new development or applicable redevelopment for commercial, institutional, industrial, common interest properties and streets right of way. So that's the places where non-functional turf wouldn't be allowed. This bill does not apply to any residential uses. And in the Durango specific recommended code amendments, we did specify that the historic district does qualify for civic and community value. So turf within a historic district would be allowed to remain. So House Bill 25-1113 was just passed this year, and this expands upon Senate Bill 24-5. So it kind of takes the same concept, but it applies it to new residential development that has 12 or more units. And where the last bill is required to be adopted by the end of this year, we are not required to adopt House Bill 25-13 until 2028. However, because we're in it, we're looking at it, we figured we can adopt this now. So that is also in front of you. Staff and the CDC have also recommended a specific change that would reduce this threshold from 12 or more units to 3 or more units, finding that this is a kind of a greater threshold that better promotes this goal of saving water because it will apply it to more properties. It better aligns with how we use the term multifamily versus single and two family, and just kind of like keeps that in 2 different buckets. But again, that's a Durango specific proposal. So a couple just miscellaneous sections. We worked with Parks and Rec Department to look at our landscaping requirements. So from this, we had a couple things that really just came into clarifying some measurements and some terms and making things a little bit less confusing. And yeah. All right, we did not receive any written public comments on this item. The CDC did receive 1 spoken public comment during their meeting, which was regarding the historic district. And then you all heard the public comment that was made earlier this evening regarding artificial turf. And I'll just address that one real quick. So SB 24-5 includes restricts artificial turf to be used in functional turf applications, but not in non-functional turf applications. So again, in the situation where there's a sports field or a picnic area or an amphitheater where you're having functional turf, artificial turf would be allowed. But the scenario where you're just ripping out otherwise non-functional turf, you can't just replace it with artificial turf. And that is language that's coming down from the state. So up on the screen here is the review criteria, and ultimately the recommendation from staff and your Community Development Commission is to approve the amendments in Exhibit A to the ordinance, finding that it meets the applicable criteria. So as far as next steps, ideally, there's a decision this evening and then a final reading of the ordinance at your next meeting. As a reminder, this does need to go into effect by January 1st, 2026. So I apologize for being a little bit under the gun here, but that is the timeline that we're looking at and on course to do that. Here is your recommended motion, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed text amendments to portions of chapters 4, 6, and 7 of the Land Use and Development Code related to functional turf, non-functional turf, invasive species, and landscaping generally, with the finding that the proposal complies with the LUDC criteria for text amendments.
Second. Maybe I'm not seeing it in here. Is there any ability, if you're taking out for a residential house, if you take out any sort of non-functional turf, can you replace it with AstroTurf, or would this eliminate any sort of artificial turf in any residential application beyond functional artificial turf?
So for a single and 2 family residents, they can do whatever they want to do with their landscaping. Okay. What's in the proposed language is that anything is above that, they would be able to use artificial turf for functional purposes. So if they had a dog walk or a park area, they would be able to use functional turf, live turf, or artificial turf for that application. But if they're just trying to, fill in some green space with landscaping, they wouldn't be able to use it there.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification.
Could we get a vote?
Mayor Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Koso,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez, and Counselor Lawyer.
Yes.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is public comment for city matters not under consideration tonight. And the first individual signed up to speak is Antonio Espinoza.
How's everyone doing tonight? Just go ahead. Consolation and clarification. I feel a majority of the public hold sympathy to the hardship of homelessness, but there remains those who feel put off by the unhoused. And it's understandable to the extent that it is misunderstood. To say that it is a poorly painted picture is untrue. The painting is accurate. There exists drug abuse and poor hygiene, petty crime and a bad attitude, and a plethora of factors that would give most sensible people a good reason to point and warn their children not to end up like that. Our nation is changing. It is no longer 1990 or even 2010 for that matter. I feel like this is important to emphasize because we all silently cling to better times, but they are gone. A poverty-stricken nation with a huge political divide has urged us to ignore how close so many of us are to being unhoused. I feel like it's worth noting that the Harvard Institute noted an 18% increase in homelessness nationwide this last year. The efforts of those willing and able to work 2 jobs to stay above water is commendable, but it is tiresome and shouldn't be necessary just to survive. There's a very common argument about just getting a job, but no business would be eager to hire anyone who can't show up to work clean and well rested. We all have appearances to maintain. The chance we need is the risk you have to take, and I see why you aren't too keen to embrace that the same way we don't see much of a point in asking. But we are begging for a sunrise. We have for the most part given up, not because we aspire to sleep outside and pursue our vices without regard, but because we are given no opportunity to aspire. A chance is not something we are familiar with, and due to the social stigma and a very narrow outlook on the demographic of the impoverished, we are typically only able to dream within the borders of your beliefs. If you believe we are addicts, we can be no more. If you believe we are a wasted cause, we can be no more. It is far easier to demonize the poor than the economy, far easier to cast blame and fear than to accept how close your children are to this fate. I've seen more than a few high schoolers sleep under the bridge in 9th Street. To act as if housing assistance and SNAP are the largest burdens on the state budget is to ignore the current system that recycles and criminalizes the poor. The burden on the budget could be ignored, mind you, so long as you don't mind wasting money. If, however, you do care about how your tax dollars are spent, let me provide some simple numbers. The average month in a rehabilitation facility costs about $10,000 a month per person. A night in jail runs about $21,000 a month. An affordable housing voucher is about $1,500 per month. You can triple that to offset the costs of social workers and outreach agencies. But I think you get the point of the metrics that I'm trying to provide. An incarceration or rehab could be exactly what someone needs to get their life back on track. But if they're released without a place to maintain that positive direction, it will end in failure, more time in jail, more time in rehab, more money wasted, and more people broken. Thank you.
And the second individual to speak on non-agenda items is Charles A. DiFerdinando.
Charles D. Ferdinando. I reside in Durango. I've been here for almost 72 years and seen lots of changes, and I'm glad I'm not sitting in your seats. But anyway, my comments tonight have to do with the reuse of the 1916 high school building. I'm the third generation of my family that received an education in that building. I've been involved in historic preservation in Durango most of my life. I'm responsible for us having a Main Avenue Historic District and the Third Avenue Historic District. I'm probably the only living person that was involved in that process that's still alive. So anyway, I know a lot about historic preservation. I know the costs of it. I work in a historic building. I am employed by the Animas Museum. And reuse of these buildings is very important. It gives us a sense of place. And for those of us who have a connection to these buildings, it means a lot. What I'm concerned about with the 1916 high school building is that we're taking the historic building and we're trying to make it conform to the needs of the city staff, et cetera, without looking at the historic significance of the building itself, and that there are certain public areas of the building that should be preserved to carry on that history. So my big concern is, again, you don't just preserve the exterior of the building, you also have to preserve some of the public areas inside the building that carry on the history of that building and place it in context. And I understand that you have to make a building usable. There's no use preserving a building if it doesn't have a modern use. But I think there's very sensitive ways to do that. Again, you have to recognize that there's historic characteristics there that need to be preserved. The auditorium space is one of those, and I think it's a major part of that building that needs to be preserved, and it would have use by the community. I appreciate you letting me make comments tonight, and good luck with all of the work you do. Thank you.
And then the next item on the agenda is 14, other new business.
Council, I'd like to propose that the council directs staff to include the fast tracking of childcare facilities with the required fast tracking process being designed for Prop 123 related affordable housing projects. I'd like to get that on. Additionally, I would like to talk about direction for the staff around bear mats and electric fencing, and take the next step in changing the ordinance there. Not quite sure how to frame that. Looking for some
You
help.
would then, with that going through, I think we either go, and I'm looking at Mark because it's an ordinance, is it just go introduction of ordinance, or do we do the new agenda item? It's the ordinance that would move forward on the next step on the bear mats and electric fences.
I think that'd have to come under new business.
New business for next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because tonight, we talked about some specific things, but that was really just a presentation. So new business, and then we'd move from there to introduction.
Okay. Okay, so Kip, now I'm wondering, you're trying to put Prop 123 along with childcare?
So,
okay, I believe that Prop 123 is only for housing.
Correct. So, but we have to,
Two different items?
no, my apologies. I was trying to explain.
for Prop 123, we have to have an accelerated fast track system for affordable housing. I would like to use that same fast track system for childcare facilities
so
to
like
get
a
through the
model.
system. So it'd be as a model, correct? Yes. But
Thank
they'd be
Okay.
connected, and in talking to the staff, it needs council direction for them to hire the consultant that might be working on the Prop 123 fast track to take into account childcare facilities.
Any other new business?
Mayor, Karen and Nisi sat here the entire meeting and we missed her public comment. It got either under the wrong area. And so I wanted to make a motion to allow Karen to speak to council.
Second.
Acclamation?
Aye.
Sorry, Karen.
I think that Charles kind of said what needed to be said, but I would like to, I did sign up and I'm not sure how it didn't come through, but I did sit through the whole meeting and I want to use my time to say why. You know, I've been following the reuse of the building for a long time and I've attended all of the meetings, the schematics and the conceptuals and all the public meetings. At one time or another, I was there. And you know, when Charles talks about that auditorium, what he didn't say is that that was the only place that the community convened. That building, that auditorium was the only meeting space. And that meeting space, that is the context and was the lifeblood of the community for many, many years. Now, why is that important? The immigrant artisans who created the building, that generation, the generation afterwards, used that auditorium. To just consider historic preservation in terms of the footprint doesn't honor the spirit of historic preservation. When I was sitting outside, because there weren't enough seats here and there were another dozen people there, and I could catch part of the program, part of the presentation about how it had gone before the HPB. Maybe it was an oversight, but I'm on the HPB and it hasn't gone before the HPB. But it will, I'm sure, and we will have some voice in it. But please, please consider that the context of that building is very important. And that building, that auditorium would hold twice the number of people that are here. And you're seeing more and more people come in to these meetings. It's a shame that only one person commented on the budget. I can remember when 25 people would be here commenting on the budget and really bringing up things that are essential questions when we talk about delivering excellent services and to the community. If I were to have the time to speak on that, I would say one of the simple things that can be done that would mean a lot to a lot of people would be to hire someone to answer the phones. Because so many people, you make the assumption when you talk about multi-generational services, so many people want to get an answer and they want to at least meander and navigate the system so that they can find an answer to their questions. So simple, small things would increase people's community engagement, and they have a lot to say and a lot to say that's of value. So please listen to what, thank you for preserving the building, but let's really get the people involved in this and not require them to comment on a 2x2 square and during this timeline. Let them say what they need to say. Thank you. And I'm glad I'm not up there because going through the 8.2s and then the ad for the artificial turf, and I thought, well, I think I'd be jumping off this building. Thank you.